Welcome back to our journey through the fascinating world of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime's Light Novel. Let's continue from the last part, where we left.
The boy sighed, feeling down as he spoke to Laplace, a member of the moderate jesters whom he trusted. He explained how a recent invitation had made him rethink their plans, especially concerning their relationship with Rimuru. Laplace suggested maintaining a friendly relationship to avoid trouble, but the boy expressed concern about the plan becoming more challenging. Laplace understood the situation but emphasized the importance of staying calm and avoiding conflict, despite his own grievances with Rimuru. Even Footman and Tyr shared the same opinion as Kigali, the leader of the jesters, understanding the dangers of acting out of emotion. They knew survival was the top priority in this world, having learned from past experiences that reckless actions led to failure. Despite Clayman's failed attempt to seek revenge against Leon, they found themselves back where they started, even with the former Kazalim among them. They all agreed to bide their time, following Yuki's orders. However, Yuki revealed a problem: Rimuru was starting to suspect them. Laplace questioned if Yuki had done something to arouse suspicion, but Kigali defended Yuki, acknowledging Rimuru's caution. She emphasized Rimuru's formidable strength, recalling her own encounter with him and feeling the threat he posed, despite not being as strong as Leon. Yuki nodded in agreement, expressing his concern about Rimuru, whom he deemed a formidable threat due to his cunning and ruthlessness when provoked. He recounted how a council leader quickly realized Rimuru's intelligence during a meeting, and Yuki felt under suspicion after failing to manipulate another individual. Despite lacking physical evidence, Yuki believed his involvement in leaking information about Shizu to Hinata could be seen as circumstantial evidence against him. Kigali, being quick-witted from her experiences, suggested revising their plan to maintain a low profile, as long as Rimuru had no concrete evidence against them. Yuki agreed, acknowledging Rimuru's strategic nature and his attempt to gauge their reaction by mentioning ancient ruins. They concluded that staying on friendly terms with Rimuru for now would be beneficial, hoping to avoid open hostility. The jesters, including Footman, expressed their understanding of Yuki's decision not to provoke Rimuru, acknowledging the odds were against them in an all-out war. They agreed to follow Yuki and Kigali's orders, recognizing the wisdom in their leadership. Yuki, having observed the power dynamics in the Western nations during the Tempest Founders Festival, decided it was unwise to antagonize Rimuru. Although he initially worried about his companions' reactions to this decision, he found that they were all willing to exercise patience and prudence. With confidence in their abilities, Yuki entrusted them with the sensitive task previously assigned to Damrata, much to the surprise of the jesters, who nervously accepted the responsibility. The jesters, including Footman, assured Yuki that they wouldn't act recklessly, acknowledging the folly of acting out of anger. They reflected on Clayman's mistake and pledged to exercise prudence in their actions, with even the typically angry Laplace acknowledging the importance of restraint. Yuki, considering Rimuru's suspicions, brought up the topic of the children Rimuru brought to Tempest, suspecting that Rimuru might be on to him. They discussed the children's growing strength likely due to the spirits within them, and speculated on Rimuru's potential schemes involving them. Kigali raised the possibility of utilizing the children for their intended purposes, which intrigued the jesters, hinting at a potential avenue for future actions. The jesters, including Footman, speculated excitedly about Leon's motives for collecting otherworlders from failed summonings, considering the possibility of raising them as fighters. They recalled Ifrit's past service to Leon and his subsequent transformation into an elementalist like Shizu. Yuki pondered over Leon's intentions, suspecting a larger scheme at play beyond mere military buildup. He tasked the jesters with negotiating with Leon to uncover his true goals, while reminding them to proceed with caution to avoid revealing their identities. Acknowledging Yuki's warning, Laplace and his companions nodded in agreement, ready to carry out their mission diligently. Now that the jesters had their tasks, it was Kigali's turn to inquire about her role. She sought guidance regarding the expedition into the ruins, which were more accurately described as a city known as Amrita, a place with a formidable defense system. As the former demon lord Kazalim, Kigali had constructed this defense system using advanced magical techniques. Amrita was guarded by powerful golems and intricate spells, surpassing even Viola, Clayman's masterpiece. The ruins of Amrita held the true hidden value of the puppet nation of Distav. To understand why such advanced defenses protected these ruins, one must delve into the past. The city of magic, once ruled by elves, fell due to their own folly, provoking the wrath of the dragon princess Milim. resulting in its destruction overnight. These ruins, known as Soma, were all that remained of the once great city. The surviving elves hoped to rebuild Soma, but they were unable to withstand the Chaos Dragon, a monstrous threat they had inadvertently created. Though not as powerful as a true dragon, the Chaos Dragon posed a catastrophe-level threat beyond the elves' ability to confront. After the fall of the Elven city, the survivors scattered across the land, some seeking refuge with their leader while others sought to establish new nations. Kigali, formerly known as Kazalim, was among those who fled, haunted by the memory of Milim's wrath. Settling in a new region, Kigali built a city called Amrita, modeled after her homeland, as a tribute to Elven technology. Now, as she contemplated using Amrita's defense system to trap Rimuru, Yuki reminded her of the potential involvement of Milim. While Kigali believed she could activate the system discreetly, Yuki cautioned against underestimating Milim's power. Despite Kigali's transformation and resilience, confronting Milim was deemed too risky, an act bordering on suicide. After the successful Tempest Founders Festival, all the important guests and visitors had left, including Fuse and the King of Bloomland, who promised to discuss matters later. Gazelle, the Dwarven King, rushed off to prepare a science team for us. Elmesia, the Thalian Emperor, bought a fancy lodging house nearby and even installed a teleportation circle for easy visits. She agreed to keep our local staff on board under the same terms, which Riegert handled. Elmesia joked about visiting as a homunculus next time, but her attendant quickly dismissed the idea as selfish. Elmesia left her country, and it was a big deal for everyone, especially for Errol. He was worried because he had to send his best knights, the Magus, to protect her, which was risky for the country. Errol's daughter, Ellen, could travel easily because she used a special potion to look different. Errol was so worried about her that he secretly sent Cabal and Guido, two of his best knights, to protect her without anyone noticing. They looked normal, but they wore magic rings that made them less powerful unless Aelin was in real danger. Rimuru was surprised by this and decided to check on Cabal and Guido's powers again next time they met. Errol asked Rimuru to take care of Ellen, and they said goodbye. Luminous, with her powerful magic, easily returned home using spatial motion, while Hinata stayed in town to assist with teaching the children at the church and battle training. With Inglesia's school transfer arranged, the children were now in Tempest under the care of Rimuru. Concerned about Yuki, Rimuru decided to keep the children away from Inglesia for a while. Having combined them with their elemental spirits, Rimuru sought Hinata's help in teaching them. Despite initially intending to keep the plan a secret, Rimuru inadvertently revealed it, much to the chagrin of Raphael. Rimuru regretted revealing sensitive information to Yuki and resolved to be more cautious in the future. With responsibility for the children's care now on Rimuru's shoulders, Hinata's assistance as a teacher was welcomed. However, when Rimuru attempted to observe Hinata's class, he was promptly kicked out by her. As the festivities settled down, Rimuru decided to launch the dungeon for adventurers. Despite lowering the difficulty level, the challengers struggled, prompting Rimuru to realize that adjustments were needed to make the dungeon more accessible. On the first floor of the dungeon, there weren't any traps, just weak monsters ranked F at most. The idea was to help adventurers get used to the place, with rooms containing treasure chests guarded by these monsters. However, despite the simplicity, no parties managed to advance past the first floor in 3 days. Even Bassin's group got lost and gave up. Some adventurers fell victim to the monsters while chasing after treasure chests, showing a lack of basic caution. Surprisingly, some even attempted to tackle the dungeon alone, which was extremely dangerous. Although the monsters on the first floor were weak individually, they could still pose a threat in large numbers. If you're going solo in the dungeon, even finding a safe spot to rest is tough. With no one to stand guard, sleeping is risky as even weak monsters might attack. Some adventurers seemed to have no plan for this, and they ended up being kicked out of the dungeon empty-handed. Progressing past floor 5 gets even harder, with stronger monsters lurking. Surprisingly, some adventurers quit because they ran out of food, despite warnings and provisions like save points and water zones. Many underestimated the challenges, perhaps relying too much on being resurrected or their own abilities. Sadly, none of the parties managed to reach the safe zone on floor 5, mainly consisting of inexperienced mercenaries and bodyguards. Despite watching for 3 days, not a single group made it far, leaving Rimuru feeling frustrated. After 3 days since opening the labyrinth, Rimuru convened an emergency meeting with Vildora, Ramirez, Masayuki as an observer, and Miromile, the dungeon's business manager. Expressing dissatisfaction with the poor results so far, Rimuru proposed offering guidance to adventurers to improve their experience. Vildora and Ramirez agreed, highlighting the importance of adventurers exploring deeper levels. Masayuki appeared unsure of his role, while Miromile eagerly contributed his thoughts to the discussion, aiming to impress Masayuki. Rimuru nodded thoughtfully as Miromile outlined his strategy. "You mentioned offering hints, but I'd like us to approach that with a soft touch. It's still only been 3 days and our challengers so far have all been from the lower ranks. We've asked the Free Guild to invite more seasoned adventurers for us, so I think we'll see more rated C and above from here on," Miromile explained. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, questioning the effectiveness of this approach. Miromile expressed confidence, citing Tsurugi's cooperation and the positive response from their outreach efforts to merchants and bodyguards. Rimuru entrusted Miromile and Soka from Team Kurayami to handle the outreach and assess the outcomes. They aimed to attract more talented adventurers to the dungeon, anticipating higher-ranked challengers in the future. Rimuru acknowledged the need for patience and long-term planning, realizing that instant results were unlikely. He noted that as more skilled adventurers joined, they would adapt to the labyrinth's challenges without extensive guidance, relying on their own experiences and resources for success. "Right. Guess there's no need to panic," then Rimuru remarked as the labyrinth continued to attract interest. With the promise of magic crystals and other valuable materials from defeated monsters, many sought to earn some extra money by exploring its depths. Nobles were also eager to join in, some wisely hiring adventurers to conquer the dungeon on their behalf. Rimuru suggested setting up guided experiences at the front desk on the first floor, including training areas to teach people about traps and battle tactics. Additionally, he proposed establishing a gym to train new recruits. Surprisingly, Masayuki proposed offering courses on conquering the labyrinth, adapting quickly to the discussion. Rimuru welcomed the idea and likened the classes to video game tutorials, prompting some confusion among the group about the term. Vildora and Ramirez were intrigued by the unfamiliar term game tutorial, prompting Masayuki and Rimuru to explain its concept. They likened it to an obstacle course where adventurers could learn basic skills before entering the labyrinth. Masayuki proposed dividing the training into missions to help adventurers better retain knowledge. Vildora and Ramirez agreed, seeing the benefit of preparing challengers before they faced the dangers of the labyrinth. Miromile suggested offering Tempest-branded weapons and armor after the tutorial, and providing tougher missions for those who needed extra training. Rimuru found the feedback immensely helpful, considering the idea of releasing a guidebook to advertise the town, possibly hiring a skilled writer for the task. Recognizing the inefficiency of challengers due to their lack of labyrinth experience, Rimuru proposed providing instruments for their training and offering more immersive experiences for those serious about dungeon survival. With plans to renovate Floor 1 into a training area, Rimuru ensured separate entrances for soldiers and challengers. Masayuki suggested offering inns and taverns on each floor, along with restroom facilities, a concept that impressed Rimuru and Ramirez. They immediately agreed to implement Masayuki's ideas, appreciating his insightful observations. Ramirez eagerly pledged to incorporate the suggestions into their plans. It was like setting up a vending machine selling toilet paper at high prices next to a bathroom with none. Unfair, yes, but very effective. Masayuki's insight was truly remarkable. Rimuru smiled and encouraged him to share more ideas. Masayuki suggested a portable save point that could be used once, especially now that trapdoors were removed, making the journey to Floor 10 longer and harder. Vildora agreed, emphasizing the need to assist fragile humans. Rimuru agreed to implement the idea, considering its profitability, while Ramirez suggested pricing them high and Miromile saw the business potential, especially for mercenaries needing to report back to their patrons. It seemed like a practical solution to attract adventurers and ensure their safety in the labyrinth. Masayuki suggested adding save points before challenging tough monsters on the 10th floor, a common practice in games. Rimuru acknowledged the importance of this idea, recalling frustrations from gaming experiences. Vildora and Ramirez agreed, appreciating Masayuki's helpful advice. Masayuki's acceptance among them as a peer was evident, and he proposed easing up on the difficulty for less experienced adventurers on certain floors. Rimuru approved, recognizing Masayuki's adaptability as his greatest asset. They decided to set up rest stops before each floor's stairway, offering access to part of Floor 95 for a fee, and planned to establish inns and taverns there, charging premium prices. Ramirez eagerly understood the profit potential in the plan. Prices are usually high at tourist spots, like paying $5 for a soda on Mount Fuji. Similarly, facilities in the labyrinth would be pricey, with the town on floor 95 becoming more useful. Ramirez assured that crafting disposable save points using recording crystals would be easy. These crystals function like regular save points, allowing adventurers to restart from where they saved if they died, even if the labyrinth changed. They decided to sell these save points at high prices and distribute them in treasure chests as well. Everyone, including Veldora and Masayuki, got excited about the idea, seeing it as a step towards fewer adventurers giving up in the labyrinth. After a fruitful meeting, Floor 1 was revamped to include a training area for newcomers to learn the basics of dungeon survival through virtual missions, with the option to skip if they wished. Safety measures were implemented to prevent death on this floor, and a battle training room was set up for advanced challengers to practice against captured monsters wearing special bracelets for revival. Additionally, a gym area was designated for the nation's new soldiers. Floors 2 to 4 had their traps removed and monsters downgraded to lower ranks, while useful items were placed in chests. Equipment and valuable items started appearing from floor 5 onwards, recalibrating the dungeon's difficulty. Reflecting on past testing, it was clear that more careful selection of testers was needed, as the initial group's progress had given a false sense of the labyrinth's ease. With the discussion seemingly concluded, a question lingered in the air until Mile spoke up, addressing another aspect of labyrinth administration. Ramirez eagerly awaited his input, her eyes glimmering with interest. Mile proposed offering a reward of 100 gold coins to attract noble attention, paid in stellar gold coins. While this amount seemed substantial, doubts arose about its adequacy. However, Mile assured them of his strategy, explaining that the reward would go to the first party to reach floor 50 each month, with the option for solo adventurers to claim the full amount and parties to divide it among themselves. This reward was just one part of a larger incentive package designed to entice adventurers deeper into the labyrinth. As he elaborated, Mile introduced prize money for defeating boss monsters on every 10th floor of the labyrinth, enticing adventurers further. On floor 10, teams battling a black spider could win 3 gold coins, while on floor 20, those conquering an evil centipede could claim 5 gold. The challenge intensified on floor 30, where an ogre lord and its henchmen awaited, offering 10 gold to victorious parties. Floor 40 posed a formidable foe within a minus tempest serpent, promising 20 gold to the first 3 successful parties. Beyond that, floor 50 featured Bovix and Equix as guardians, presenting a significant hurdle for adventurers aiming for the grand prize of 100 gold coins. This structured approach aimed to generate excitement and competition among adventurers while ensuring fairness in prize distribution. So can we make money from this? Mile assured that profitability wouldn't be an issue, suggesting even increasing the prizes based on initial calculations. While the payouts were relatively small compared to overall earnings, they would stimulate competition among challengers without denting profits. Mile proposed leveraging Masayuki's potential success on floor 50 for advertising purposes, a notion Rimuru found appealing for boosting Masayuki's reputation and promoting the dungeon. As they agreed on the plan, Masayuki had something to add, but Rimuru feigned ignorance, prompting Masayuki to hesitate. But Mile had more to unveil, eager to present his grand idea. With a mischievous grin, he proposed offering 100 stellar gold coins to anyone who survived the final floor of the labyrinth, stunning everyone with the magnitude of the reward. Rimuru estimated it could be worth around 1 billion yen, considering the low cost of living in their world. Mile believed such a generous prize would entice more adventurers and, consequently, increase profits. Despite Ramirez's concern about the hefty sum, Mile remained confident, emphasizing Veldora's unbeatable prowess as a deterrent. Veldora, reveling in his self-proclaimed status as the Storm Dragon, endorsed Miromal's plan, attributing his intelligence to observations of Rimuru. While Rimuru questioned the feasibility of anyone defeating Veldora, the proposal aimed to generate interest and revenue, although reaching floor 100 remained uncertain for any challenger. From an outside perspective, the group discussed the daunting challenge of conquering their labyrinth, recognizing its formidable defenses, especially with literal dragons guarding its depths. While the idea of offering a lavish reward of 100 stellars for reaching the bottom floor initially surprised them, they all agreed it was unlikely anyone would succeed. They decided to proceed with the plan. intending to attract as many challengers as possible by hyping it up as the Demon Lord's challenge. However, the leader, contemplating the implications of continuing to call himself the Demon Lord, offered a twist. Challengers who conquered floor 100 would have the opportunity to face him. Masayuki was instructed to deflect any requests for such a confrontation. After Miramile left, Masayuki expressed his concern about an upcoming fight he promised to have, feeling unsure about his chances. Rimuru suggested he train with the kids while Hinata was around, but Masayuki was hesitant, preferring a peaceful life. Rimuru assured him they'd find a solution to ensure he didn't lose. They wrapped up the meeting discussing this issue and decided to make adjustments to the labyrinth. Rimuru acknowledged Masayuki's cooperation and the importance of his reputation. He was concerned about potential losses if Masayuki lost the fight. Rimuru resolved to address the problem, possibly by reasoning with Bovix. With that, they concluded the meeting, and the labyrinth adjustments were completed by the day's end. So they kept a close eye on the dungeon, feeling excited about the changes. Rimuru personally felt the labyrinth had become easier thanks to Masayuki's insights, but they also considered Miramile's warnings about maintaining the right balance. However, some challengers ignored instructions and missions, driven by their desire for valuable treasures like the rare-level sword found by Bassan's party. In this world, rare gear was superior magisteel forged equipment, crafted from magic ore and Veldora's magicules. Unlike gear from other nations, their weapons and armor were made from pure magisteel, even the basic ones being of high quality. The labyrinth now contained a variety of gear, some of which was truly excellent and highly sought after, like the rare item Bassan obtained, despite its rarity. Furthermore, even items labeled as failures from Kurob's workshop could be considered rare, but if Kurob deemed them a failure, they were deemed unworthy. This led to a discovery that even within the same class of gear, there could be individual differences in capabilities, something Kurob had noticed and used to define success and failure. Upon comparing two rare-level swords, one crafted by Kurob and the other by an apprentice, Rimuru noticed a clear distinction, likely due to their improved analyze and assess skills. They explained that while their copy of Kurob's work would be in the same class, it would still be an inferior version. This highlighted the importance of differences in weapon capabilities for those who relied on them for survival. Quality weapons and armor were essential lifelines in a world where monster attacks were unpredictable. The rare equipment dropped by the boss on floor 10 was highly sought after, despite being inferior to Kurob's own work. This demand generated a surge of interest in the labyrinth, especially after news of the rare gear spread among challengers, merchants, and free guilds, attracting individuals hoping to strike it rich by exploring the labyrinth. Rimuru acknowledged the unintended but appreciated advertising from Bassan's group, yet emphasized that obtaining rare equipment wasn't as easy as a quick errand. Those who disregarded their guidance found themselves lagging behind, as completing missions before venturing into the labyrinth proved advantageous. As more people followed instructions, training on the first floor intensified, boosting their budget through equipment purchases. Days after rebalancing the dungeon, parties reached the 5th floor, where challenges grew more daunting with hazardous traps and stronger monsters. Fatigue became a concern, leading many to rest at designated areas. Adventurers from free guilds arrived, adding to the bustling activity, but some attempted to cheat by selling maps, prompting Rimuru to change the labyrinth's layout regularly. Despite initial complaints, this approach discouraged reliance on external maps, fostering a more serious approach to exploration and reducing map sales. Rimuru and the team were pleased with the measures against cheating but remained vigilant. Free guild adventurers, though late to the labyrinth, possessed skills like automap, giving them an edge. They were well-versed in battling monsters and efficiently divided tasks among their group members. Unlike Bassan's combat-focused party, these groups emphasized balance and adaptability, impressing Rimuru. As they swiftly completed training missions and explored the dungeon, their professionalism stood out, making Rimuru question the decision to restrict the labyrinth. Within days, a challenger conquered floor 10, inspiring others to learn from successes and share strategies, turning information into a valuable commodity. The town embraced the challenger's progress as entertainment, fueling excitement and rumors across shops, inns, and taverns. Among the buzz, there was talk of a party that zoomed through the labyrinth with remarkable speed, a well-rounded group of 10. They swiftly reached floor 10's save point. Then one member shared that info with another party before returning to the entrance and descending with their own group. Despite expecting this tactic, Rimuru was amazed at their pace, defeating the floor 20 boss in just 3 days. Each member displayed individual talent around a B rank, possibly B+ collectively, showcasing excellent teamwork. Their secret? Elemental communication, a skill of elementalists who can talk to elemental spirits, guiding them through the maze effortlessly. The discovery of the elementalist strategy was a surprise, but Rimuru saw it as a clever workaround within the rules. He appreciated their ingenuity and chose not to intervene, acknowledging it as a valid approach. As the party known as Green Fury rapidly advanced through the labyrinth, their achievements were celebrated across town, elevating their fame. Rimuru recognized the growing talent attracted to the labyrinth, foreseeing an increase in aspiring challengers seeking fortune and glory in its depths. They gathered again after 10 days to discuss any issues with the labyrinth's reorganization. The atmosphere was cheerful, with smiles all around. Veldora praised Masayuki, but Masayuki seemed unsure of him, prompting Rimuru to reintroduce them. When Masayuki mentioned not remembering the introduction, Rimuru realized he hadn't made one. Veldora welcomed Masayuki warmly, but Masayuki recognized him as the catastrophe that destroyed Pharmus's army. Instead of explaining, Rimuru joked about Veldora's temper and his love for sweets, lightening the mood. Rimuru playfully disciplined Veldora with rolled-up papers before introducing Ramirez, the fairy ruler of the labyrinth, to Masayuki. Masayuki seemed surprised but praised Ramirez for building the labyrinth. Ramirez, thrilled by the compliment, eagerly accepted Masayuki as her underling. Rimuru tried to move the conversation along, but Ramirez's excitement persisted. When Masayuki asked about Ramirez, Rimuru quietly explained that she's a demon lord like himself. Masayuki was stunned, realizing he had been interacting with powerful beings without knowing. Rimuru felt partly responsible for not explaining sooner, but also thought Masayuki should have been more aware given his calm demeanor in their previous meetings. They say not knowing can sometimes be a blessing. Masayuki had been accepted by a dragon and a demon lord without even realizing it. Niromile, recognizing Masayuki's confusion, intervened, playing along with Ramirez's jests. Despite this, Miromile's genuine belief in Masayuki shone through, earning a smile from him. Rimuru then introduced Miromile as his trusted financial advisor. Masayuki politely declined Ramirez's offer, expressing his loyalty to Rimuru. Miromile teased Rimuru playfully, to which Rimuru innocently replied. Veldora chimed in with praise for Rimuru, and despite Rimuru's reservations, introductions continued, although everyone already knew Masayuki's name. "Okay, Masayuki, your turn," said Rimuru. Sure, Masayuki nodded. "I'm Masayuki. I come from the same world as Rimuru, and now we're working together. People call me a hero, but please don't let that affect your judgment." Masayuki introduced himself confidently, though it seemed he wanted to joke about being called a hero. Highly adaptable, he remained composed even under Miromile's watchful gaze. As the introductions concluded, they all settled down for a more relaxed discussion. Ramirez and Veldora praised Masayuki and Miromile for their contributions, acknowledging the importance of teamwork. Sales in the town were booming, bringing joy to the innkeepers and tavern owners alike. Miromile handed out some papers, so Rimuru quickly skimmed through them, leaving the detailed analysis to Raphael. The report showed that the adjustments made to the labyrinth were successful, and Rimuru noted the positive impact of their advertising efforts. The report also covered the implementation of adventurer cards, which allowed easy access to the labyrinth for guild members. The admission fee was set at 3 silver coins, but with additional benefits like resurrection bracelets available for purchase at a reasonable price of 2 silver coins. These bracelets not only revived the wearer but also healed their wounds to prevent unnecessary deaths, but a warning announcement played if someone entered the labyrinth without wearing the bracelet. Overall, the labyrinth was generating significant revenue from admission fees and item sales. The bracelets sold like crazy, placed conveniently by the front desk where people got resurrected, becoming the most popular item in the dungeon. Return whistles were a bit pricey at 30 silver coins each, but they were a lifesaver if you got lost, unlike relying solely on the bracelets. Recording crystals were luxury items, costing a gold coin each, letting you turn back time whenever you wanted, but they weren't selling as well. Renting weapons and armor, especially Kurobe-crafted ones, showed promise with good feedback from customers who lost their main gear. Despite the success, they couldn't let their guard down and needed to be more careful than ever. The leading party in the dungeon kept going strong, motivating other challengers to keep trying even after failing. This boosted our sales, making our goal of 1,000 admissions per day seem reachable. During the discussion, Ramirez suggested interfering with the elementalist using elemental communication, but Rimuru thought it was unfair. Vildora then proposed creating an elemental-free zone to disrupt the communication, surprising everyone with his insight, even though he's usually not very helpful. "Rimuru, why do you look so surprised?" asked Vildora, catching on to Rimuru's reaction to his suggestion. Rimuru quickly recovered, praising Vildora's insight and agreeing to implement his idea of creating an elemental-free zone. Ramirez readily agreed to handle the task by asking the spirits to relocate. Moving on to other matters, Masayuki proposed the idea of defeated monsters dropping items for explorers, particularly healing potions, to make them more accessible. He pointed out that healing potions were expensive, and many adventurers avoided battles or the labyrinth altogether due to the cost. Rimuru considered Masayuki's suggestion valid, acknowledging the importance of making potions more affordable. He reflected on the pricing of potions within Tempest and compared it to the cost of accommodations in the city, highlighting the need for more accessible healing options. On the flip side, a lower-ranked adventurer typically earned around 15 to 20 silver coins per day in the labyrinth, barely enough to get by. They couldn't afford basic necessities like healthcare or equipment maintenance, let alone save for emergencies. Their only hope for a better life was to improve their skills, but spending 4 silver coins on a potion was a luxury they couldn't afford. While Masayuki's idea of monsters dropping items seemed feasible, Rimuru hesitated, mindful of not overly pampering visitors. Ramirez, however, proposed a solution having monsters ingest items upon birth, which opened up new possibilities. Rimuru saw this as an opportunity to provide more useful items in treasure chests and generate income for lower-ranked adventurers, aiming to reward their efforts and improve their livelihoods in the labyrinth. "Sure, that sounds like a good plan," Rimuru said, nodding in agreement. "If it helps folks earn more by battling monsters, they'll probably give it their all. It might also boost trade in monster materials and bring more attention to our nation. Once we have more funds, we can consider welfare programs. Offering aid for serious injuries could be a start, similar to how Japan provides healthcare for everyone. We'll also need to define who qualifies as citizens of Tempest soon. Right now, we're welcoming all sorts of people, but as our nation grows, we might need to establish some rules. Citizens should contribute to the nation's well-being and receive services in return, while others can still visit but won't enjoy the same benefits. Rigard and Rimuru will have to discuss this further. It's crucial to address these matters, and Masayuki suggested about introducing mysterious potions or unfamiliar weapons and armor to add some variety. In the midst of the conference, Rimuru quickly grasped Masayuki's suggestion. The idea of introducing UN-appraised items to the labyrinth intrigued them both, drawing parallels to video game mechanics. Ramirez and Vildora caught wind of the excitement, offering their own contributions to the concept. Miromile provided practical feedback, highlighting the potential impact on return whistle sales. The group collectively embraced the notion, recognizing its potential to enhance the labyrinth experience and boost profitability. With everyone on board, they resolved to implement the changes and initiate a system update. Despite Ramirez's attempt to feign understanding, the group's enthusiasm remained undimmed as they prepared to put their plan into action. The next evening rolled around, and Rimuru found themselves immersed in their daily tasks, inspecting various projects around town and reviewing reports in their office. Shion, taking on the role of a dedicated secretary, handed over a report from Miromile detailing progress made since their previous meeting. Diablo, ever attentive, poured tea for Rimuru, who noticed a slight difference in its taste. Despite Diablo's concern, Rimuru assured them it was fine, although they couldn't help but wonder about Shion's sudden expertise in tea preparation. Diablo explained that Shion had taken over tea duties from Benamaru, who had been hesitant to continue as the taste tester. Rimuru found it amusing that Diablo had tested the tea himself, considering their immunity to poison, but appreciated the effort nonetheless. Rimuru realized they hadn't properly thanked Diablo for his hard work during the Pharmas invasion and decided to rectify that. They praised Shion for her improvement in tea preparation and acknowledged Diablo's dedication. Remembering their promise of a reward, Rimuru considered what to offer. Hakuro was enjoying vacation time with his daughter, Gado was rewarded with potential membership to an elf-run club, and Gabble was appointed head of a new research facility. Feeling indebted to Diablo, Rimuru asked if there was anything Diablo wanted in return for his service. Diablo then requested permission for something, prompting Rimuru's attention. Diablo astutely expressed his desire for assistance with his miscellaneous tasks, prompting Rimuru's curiosity. However, Diablo clarified that he meant handling significant duties like conquering nations, emphasizing his commitment to supporting Rimuru. Despite Rimuru's initial surprise, he realized Diablo's dedication to serving him. While Rimuru hesitated to assign someone of Diablo's power to this role, Diablo assured him that he didn't intend to overshadow others like Benimaru. Instead, he proposed inviting some old acquaintances for assistance, indicating they would require vessels for their physical forms. Understanding the situation, Rimuru agreed, hoping it wouldn't involve human corpses like the ones used for Beretta. Rimuru expressed concern about Diablo's request for physical bodies, considering potential implications. However, Diablo assured him that the recruits would not object. Rimuru then agreed to provide bodies for them, also considering crafting additional ones for other purposes. Diablo confidently mentioned that his recruits would not require payment and proposed bringing along their staff as well. Rimuru, taken aback by the prospect of hundreds, even 1,000, potential recruits, especially if they were all demons, couldn't help but wonder about Diablo's intentions. Diablo's plan to recruit a large number of demons, fearing it might lead to trouble. However, Diablo reassured him that he could handle any potential conflict. Despite Rimuru's worry, Diablo remained confident and accepted Rimuru's offer to prepare vessels for the recruits. Rimuru cautioned Diablo to take care of himself, to which Diablo gratefully agreed. With a mix of emotions, Diablo thanked Rimuru and prepared to depart, promising to return soon. Rimuru, though apprehensive about managing with only Shion as a secretary, bid Diablo farewell with a smile, confident that things would work out. A few days after their last meeting, Masayuki's team successfully cleared floor 30 of the dungeon, causing a wave of excitement among the townsfolk. They celebrated Masayuki as a hero, chanting his name throughout the town. Despite Masayuki's discomfort with the attention, the public adored him even more. Shops capitalized on his fame with special sales, adding to the lively atmosphere. In their next meeting, Masayuki expressed his struggles with the newfound attention, prompting Rimuru to tease him gently. Rimuru's attempt to lighten the mood with a playful greeting fell flat as Masayuki seemed overwhelmed by the praise for his team's achievement in clearing floor 30 of the dungeon. Despite Masayuki's modesty, everyone recognized the significance of their feat, considering the formidable monsters they faced. Jinrai's mithril armor significantly boosted their defense, allowing the party to employ effective strategies in battle. The combination of Bernie's elemental magic, Jiwoo's spirit magic, and Masayuki's chosen one abilities proved to be a winning formula. Rimuru acknowledged the effectiveness of their advertising strategy involving rare equipment sets, such as the Ogre series, which enticed adventurers with special effects and unique rewards. However, the rarity of these items meant that obtaining them required luck and patience due to the low drop rates from the boss's treasure chest. The drop rate for the Ogre series equipment in the labyrinth was designed to appeal to people's love for collecting rare items, adding another layer of excitement to exploring the dungeon. With Masayuki's team obtaining the Ogre Greaves and learning about the set's magic interference effect, adventurers were encouraged to gather the entire armor set to unlock its full potential. Made from Magisteel salvage from Cherry Bis, the Ogre series provided effective protection against certain monster abilities, such as the Tempest Serpent's poisonous breath. Rimuru hoped that this new incentive would motivate more adventurers to enter the labyrinth and face its challenges, especially with parties of up to 10 members allowed. Everything was going according to plan, and Rimuru was pleased with the progress. Masayuki considered Rimuru's suggestion about completing the Ogre series but weighed it against the effectiveness of the mithril armor provided to Jinrai. Despite the serpent's toughness, Jinrai could serve as a decoy while the rest of the group fought. Masayuki's team decided to keep pushing forward. He acknowledged the excitement of discovering chests and the added thrill of monsters dropping items. This simple change revitalized the hunting process, making even weaker monsters worth pursuing again, much to the enthusiasm of Jinrai and the others. The results of implementing monster materials in the marketplace were better than Rimuru expected. With help from Trainee and the Dryads, they devised a simple method of giving labyrinth-born monsters items to carry. Special pipes supplied magicules to designated rooms on each floor, known as monster lairs, where monsters would swallow the items placed by the Dryads. Monitoring these lairs was easier than tracking every monster, and it added an element of surprise for adventurers. Appraisers were kept busy, charging a fee to identify items obtained from slain monsters, including fruit juice, milk, and low potions. They also included failed items from Kurob's apprentices, bought at low prices to attract more customers like crane game prizes. They decided to include occasional masterpieces from Kurob's assistants as jackpots in the treasure chests, attracting a lot of attention and encouraging people to return to the labyrinth. With rewards like treasure chests, monetary prizes for clearing every 10th floor, and loot from defeated monsters, there was plenty to entice adventurers to come back. The labyrinth was thriving, leading to an increase in visitors to the town. The new inn on floor 95 was particularly popular, with a unique door marked in that required a small fee to open. Beyond the door, labyrinth managers explained the ever-changing maze structure, making it challenging for explorers to navigate. Camping out in the corridors became a necessity for many parties due to the difficulty of reaching save points, although it wasn't an enjoyable experience for Masayuki, who found it uncomfortable and rough. For most kids nowadays, whether from this world or another, camping out in the labyrinth would be tough. You could find a chamber with a treasure chest and camp there, but you'd still need someone to keep watch since monsters roam the hallways. Providing a safe resting place became really popular. Figuring out what to do with the equipment you found inside was another challenge. It'd be a waste to throw it away since there might be rare items hidden among the seemingly useless stuff. But with limited space for your sleeping gear, food, and backup equipment, tough choices had to be made. Food was often the first to go when space was tight. Some monsters dropped edible items when defeated, and water could be conjured with magic, so many people made do with the bare minimum. If you ran out of supplies, dying and respawning with your items using the resurrection bracelet was better than starving. As a result, more people started buying return whistles, which let you return to the surface with all your belongings. With the labyrinth focusing more on dropped items, adventurers carried less food. Having an inn available down there was a game changer. For a fee, you could rest and get a meal, making your pack lighter and your journey easier. Even though it cost more than a regular inn, many adventurers found it worth the price for the added safety and convenience. For just 3 coins, adventurers could access a simple inn in the labyrinth, with separate sections for men and women, offering small rooms with only a bed. The inn was run by Treants as part of a training program for new staff, teaching them skills like cleaning, cooking, and customer service. Despite the basic accommodations, adventurers appreciated the safety it provided in the dangerous labyrinth. Additional services like laundry, bath access, and equipment cleaning were available for extra fees, which many adventurers found worthwhile due to the tough conditions in the dungeon. Masayuki suggested adding bathroom access without renting a room, which turned out to be a popular idea. Cleaning in the labyrinth wasn't necessary as monsters consumed waste and kept the environment tidy, with Ramirez clearing out any unnecessary debris whenever the layout changed, ensuring a clean dungeon for adventurers. Many adventurers weren't comfortable using the labyrinth hallways as a bathroom, fearing attacks from monsters and the embarrassment of being caught mid-business. Trying to handle bathroom breaks while surrounded by friends in open corridors led to performance anxiety for many. Some attempted to solve this issue with magic spells like Clean Washington and Health Management, which helped maintain bodily functions. However, relying solely on magic posed risks during long journeys in the maze. This prompted even sorcerers to opt for the inn's services, providing a more secure and private option for adventurers needing a restroom. Labyrinth management was going smoothly, with Miromile expressing satisfaction over increasing profits despite the initial investment. Considering potential expansions, Miromile aimed for a 20% profit margin and believed it achievable with more customers. However, Rimuru, as the ruler, prioritized ensuring the satisfaction and well-being of the townspeople involved in the project. While profit was important, Rimuru also valued creating a fulfilling work environment for everyone. Concerned about unpaid labor, Rimuru discussed the possibility of compensating employees with Miromile, who suggested using the average salary in Bloomond as a benchmark. Despite no complaints so far, Rimuru planned to address this matter with Rigard and other officials soon. As the subjects diligently worked without expectation of compensation, Ramirez nervously approached the topic of her payment, relieved upon receiving assurance. With a sense of importance, Miromile pledged a significant sum, prompting Ramirez to declare the onset of her era. Trainee's supportive demeanor towards Ramirez was evident, though Rimuru refrained from intervening. Veldora, expressing curiosity about payment, was also promised a fair amount for his contribution to the labyrinth's upkeep. Despite Rimuru's reminder to use their earnings wisely, Miromile encouraged them to enjoy their money, highlighting its capacity for pleasure. Absolutely, agreed Ramirez enthusiastically, while Rimuru silently noted the potential consequences of Miromile's encouragement. Despite Ramira's self-assured demeanor, Rimuru refrained from expressing his frustrations and acknowledged the value of allowing them to learn from their experiences. Shifting the conversation, Rimuru inquired about the town's progress outside the labyrinth, prompting Miromile to report on the bustling activity, with merchants showing keen interest in conducting direct business in the town. Pleased with the positive developments, Rimuru reflected on the success of the Founders' Festival in attracting visitors and envisioned a future where the labyrinth's reputation would bolster the nation's economy by encouraging adventurers to spend their earnings on various goods and services. Rimuru envisioned the town's future prosperity, with merchants from other nations playing a vital role by purchasing monster materials and offering rare goods. He anticipated that the town would become more vibrant over time, as word spread about its unique offerings, including rare foods, beverages, and specialty items crafted by various artisans like Shuna, Kurobe, and Kaijin's apprentices. Certain shops even showcase special merchandise, particularly gear from Kurobe's workshop, which would undoubtedly attract attention. Rimuru was confident that the quality of these goods would speak for itself, especially with the availability of a testing facility nearby for customers to try out their purchases. He believed that, in time, the reputation of the town's products would spread globally, making them highly sought after by customers worldwide. Rimuru emphasized the importance of trust in their nation, stating that it outweighed mere profit. While profitability was crucial, as long as they remained financially stable, their primary goal was gaining acceptance for their nation. Miromile agreed, noting the increasing number of visitors to the labyrinth as a sign of growing trust. Rimuru appreciated Miromile's perspective, acknowledging his alignment with their goals despite being human. He believed that trust was earned gradually and could easily be lost, but stimulating people's desires could foster trust. Rimuru saw their partnership with Miromile as a prime example of building trust based on mutual desires. He stressed the importance of fair dealings and reciprocal trust, seeing their collaboration as an opportunity for personal growth and learning from Miromile's expertise. After paying Ramirez and Vildora their salaries, they both seemed content with the amount. However, I wondered if they had considered how they would spend it. Ramirez then asked if she could have a personal space for development purposes, to which I explained that I had ideas I wanted to try building. Kurobe's workshop was already bustling with research activity, making it difficult to keep new discoveries secret, so I tasked him with developing unique weapons and armor. With Raphael's assistance, I didn't need a physical space for research, but rather a facility for implementing my ideas. Ramirez eagerly agreed to set up the space on the 100th level, ensuring its security for important research and development projects. When asked about my plans, I kept it a secret, although Ramirez and Vildora insisted on knowing, promising no secrets between us. Reluctantly, I decided to share some details, knowing they were persistent and that they often did things behind my back. After ensuring Ramirez and Vildora were satisfied with their salaries, the question lingered in Rimuru's mind about how they intended to use their earnings. Ramirez then proposed the idea of setting up a personal space for herself, prompting Rimuru to explain his own intentions for development rather than research. Recognizing the bustling activity in Kurobe's workshop, Rimuru directed him to focus on creating unique weaponry and armor. While a physical space wasn't necessary for Rimuru's research with Raphael, he needed a facility to bring his ideas to life. Eager to please, Ramirez readily agreed to set up the space on the 100th level, ensuring its security for important projects. When pressed about his plans, Rimuru initially kept it a secret, but Ramirez and Vildora persisted, promising transparency. Finally relenting, Rimuru revealed his intentions, knowing they were persistent and often engaged in their own ventures behind his back. In the following days, Rimuru immersed himself in setting up his development equipment and utilizing Raphael's abilities to their fullest within his stomach, copying various items for future use. However, he was interrupted when reminded by Raphael about his lack of communication with the outside world, realizing he had been neglecting meals and causing worry among his companions, Shuna and Shion. Apologizing for his absence, Rimuru reassured them of his well-being and promised to check in more frequently. Feeling grateful for their concern, Rimuru acknowledged the importance of not getting too absorbed in personal pursuits. Shion then informed him that Miromile had been searching for him, prompting Rimuru to express regret for not noticing earlier and suggesting the installation of a doorbell for future notifications. Shion initially didn't think much of Miromile's urgent search for Rimuru, but when he continued his pursuit the next day, she grew more concerned and discussed it with Shuna, who mentioned it was related to labyrinth matters but didn't know the specifics. Rimuru pondered whether Miromile didn't explain to Shion due to complexity or reluctance. Reflecting on Diablo's ability to capture attention, Rimuru acknowledged Miromile's urgency as he joined them for lunch, revealing that another team had rapidly progressed past floor 30 in the labyrinth, nearing floor 40. Initially unfazed, Rimuru became concerned upon learning that they were bending labyrinth rules in innovative ways, a development he hadn't anticipated. The party came up with clever ways to utilize Ramirez's labyrinth items, starting with using a recording crystal near the floor 20 boss monster, allowing them to revive at that spot if defeated. Then, they used a return whistle to leave the labyrinth and split into 10 smaller parties, each with 10 members, forming a small army. They all wore matching coats with a shared emblem and marched in formation, intimidating others as they entered the labyrinth. Despite the rule allowing only one party to face a boss at a time, all 10 parties challenged the floor 30 boss in succession, eventually defeating it with the third party. They recognized the party as Team Green Fury, likely working for a noble due to their matching coats. Using recording crystals so freely indicated a hefty budget. Investigation revealed they were affiliated with the Sons of the Velti, a prominent mercenary group from Inglesia. While it felt like they were buying their way into the labyrinth, it wasn't against the rules. Although concerning, there wasn't much they could do as complaints might seem unreasonable given the rising profits. However, if this trend continued, the floors filled with traps might be conquered quickly. Miromile was in a frenzy searching for Rimuru, fearing that someone might conquer the entire labyrinth while Rimuru was occupied. Assuring Miromile that things wouldn't heat up until beyond floor 40, Rimuru mentioned the Tempest Serpent as a potential obstacle for Team Green Fury. Despite their impressive teamwork, Rimuru doubted their individual skills. Unable to accurately assess their abilities through video footage, Rimuru decided to consult Voldora and the others for insight. Miromile swiftly organized a meeting, demonstrating his efficiency. With everyone informed, Rimuru got ready to join them. Back in the labyrinth's meeting room, Voldora scolded Rimuru for being late, followed by Ramirez expressing her concern about the situation. Ramirez showed Rimuru a video of the invaders' progress, projecting it in a transparent box. Rimuru couldn't directly assess the situation due to the limitations of the footage. However, Raphael proposed using Ramirez's Mazecraft skill to gather more detailed information. Rimuru asked for permission to intervene in Ramirez's skill, though unsure of the exact plan. Ramirez agreed, albeit with some hesitation, questioning Rimuru's ability to handle it. Ramirez mentioned the overwhelming amount of data involved in her Mazecraft skill, which Rimuru acknowledged. However, Raphael assured Rimuru that handling the data wouldn't be an issue. Despite some initial hesitation, Ramirez granted Rimuru access to her Mazecraft skill. With Raphael's assistance, Rimuru began collecting information from the labyrinth. Rimuru didn't feel any discomfort despite the influx of data. After analyzing Team Green Fury, Raphael concluded that their leader was highly skilled, but the others were not significantly different from previous assessments. Rimuru then noticed that Analyze and Assess was still active, indicating that something had caught Raphael's attention. Understanding that Raphael had his own plans, Rimuru returned his focus to the meeting. When Ramirez and Voldora questioned Rimuru about what he learned, he confidently revealed that the leader of Team Green Fury was exceptionally skilled, surprising everyone. Rimuru explained that he was able to access and manipulate Ramirez's skill due to her granting him permission. Ramirez expressed disbelief at Rimuru's proficiency, explaining that she could only show footage from fixed positions. However, Rimuru reassured her and the others, stating that he was simply more adept at using the skill for now. As they observed the footage, they realized that the leader of Team Green Fury, an elementalist, possessed significant hidden power, likely capable of accessing even stronger elementals, indicating formidable abilities beyond their own. Oh, so when you say are we talking about how strong they are compared to monsters exactly? The Free Guild ranks adventurers based on their ability to defeat monsters of certain ranks, but it doesn't always consider safety factors. Rimuru explained that the standards were based on scenarios where several adventurers faced off against a monster of that rank. When asked about their own abilities, Rimuru hesitated, deciding not to reveal the full extent of Masayuki's strength due to his unique skill. Instead, Rimuru assessed Jinrai as barely reaching a rank, mentioning that he might struggle against certain monsters alone. However, with the right equipment, he could easily handle tougher challenges. Despite Masayuki's faults, his companions, Jiwoo and Bernie, were rated at a-, forming a well-balanced party. Miromile praised Masayuki as an over A, certifying him as a hero, which overwhelmed Masayuki with emotion. Rimuru then expressed concern about Team Green Fury and the Sons of the Velti, recognizing their formidable lineup of adventurers. No way. Are there really that many strong people? Jinrai exclaimed, surprised by the revelation. Rimuru acknowledged the challenge posed by the powerful adventurers, recognizing their potential to overcome even the toughest obstacles in the labyrinth. He explained that Bovix and Equix from the Velti were formidable opponents, while comparing them to Jinrai in terms of physical strength. The Green Fury leader was also noted for their exceptional abilities in battle. Rimuru observed that the invaders were using summoned creatures to scout ahead and avoid the traps set by Ramirez. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Ramirez seemed tense and Veldora appeared disturbed, prompting Rimuru to inquire if something was amiss. Ramirez hesitated before revealing that during Rimuru's 3-day absence, something had occurred that left them uneasy. As Ramirez explained, Hinata's Crusaders had started their training on floors 51 through 60, encountering Ramirez's traps along the way. Despite her confidence in the traps, the Paladins managed to purify everything in their path, including the undead summoned by Adelman on floor 60. Adelman, though formidable, couldn't match the Paladin's strength. However, his defeat left him feeling downcast. Then, the Crusaders navigated through Veldora's traps on the higher floors, much to Veldora and Ramirez's frustration, as they described the Paladins dodging every obstacle effortlessly. Between floors 61 and 70, Veldora's traps posed some challenge, but with the Paladin's ability to heal and resurrect, they never felt threatened. Ramirez was surprised that her elemental Colossus managed to defeat the Paladins, but despite its formidable strength, Ramirez seemed despondent. Miromile mentioned that Hinata, frustrated by the Paladin's struggle against the boss, made it to the 95th floor in just one day, which shocked everyone considering how fast she progressed. If Hinata, in her angered state, faced the elemental Colossus, it wouldn't stand a chance against her. Hinata swiftly defeated the elemental Colossus with disintegration, then effortlessly defeated the boss on floor 80. Veldora mentioned that his apprentice Zijin couldn't assist due to being in pupil form, and Ipito, despite her agility as a queen wasp, couldn't keep up with Hinata's speed. Ramirez admired Hinata's strength, acknowledging her as a formidable opponent. Hinata continued her ascent, defeating each boss from floors 81 to 89, all ruled by Kumara's followers. Even Beretta, serving as the boss on floor 90, fell to Hinata's prowess, surprising everyone with her incredible feats. Despite her achievements, Hinata remained humble, retiring to her suite on the 95th floor. Hinata had tackled the toughest floors, crafted by Milim from 96 to 99, including the Raging Earth floor with its gravity traps. Despite the challenges, she effortlessly overcame them all. Veldora, as the last boss on floor 99, fought Hinata and emerged victorious, though he acknowledged her formidable strength and unique fighting style. Unfortunately, there were no battle records available, leaving Rimuru regretful for missing such an epic encounter. Miromile expressed awe at Hinata's prowess, while Masayuki humbly admitted to feeling uneasy whenever comparisons were made between himself and Hinata. He. Oh, no need to joke about that, Miromile, Masayuki responded, trying to deflect the conversation. But Miromile persisted, expressing eagerness at the prospect of a sparring match between Masayuki and Veldora. Rimuru intervened, praising Masayuki's strategic prowess and diverting the conversation back to the main topic. Veldora continued his recount of the battle with Hinata, noting her diverse range of attacks and her final move, Melt Slash, which inflicted minimal damage on him. Despite her efforts, Hinata's attacks had little effect on Veldora. Do you think she could be a threat if she used the right tactics? Rimuru inquired, considering Hinata's potential. Ramirez pondered for a moment, acknowledging Hinata's strength surpassing lesser demon lords like Clayman and even posing a challenge to members of the Octagram. However, Veldora boasted that Hinata would need significantly more power to challenge him. Rimuru, reflecting on the battle, regretted missing the opportunity to witness it firsthand. Steering the conversation back, Rimuru highlighted the failure of the labyrinth's second half against the Paladins and Hinata, raising concerns about the boss's effectiveness in combat. Ramirez, visibly distressed, revealed that her creation, the elemental Colossus, was broken and unable to resurrect, likely due to its lack of a soul. Veldora and Rimuru speculated that the labyrinth's authority might not extend to it since it was not considered a potential target, suggesting the need to address the issue despite its rarity. "That takes a lot of time to build, doesn't it?" Rimuru remarked, acknowledging the effort required. Ramirez confirmed the time-consuming process, revealing that floor 70 currently lacked a boss. Similarly, Zijin on floor 80 would remain dormant for a while Apito, though stronger, needed more battle experience before assuming a boss role. It was unexpected that Apito was receiving combat training, facilitated by Hinata, who was already involved in mentoring their younger members. Kumara's minions, governing floors 81 to 89, were manifestations of her nine tails, significantly depleting her magic reserves. Hence, Kumara decided to study under Hinata alongside Alice and Chloe. Rimuru grasped the situation, realizing the absence of bosses from floors 60 to 90. Ramirez and Veldora expressed frustration, while Miramile and Masayuki were surprised by the development, highlighting a sudden challenge in managing the labyrinth. Rimuru sighed, understanding the predicament at hand. So, Rimuru faced multiple challenges, but he had a clear plan starting from floor 51 downwards. Veldora and Ramirez felt reassured by Rimuru's confidence and asked about his traps. Rimuru explained that his traps became serious from floor 41 downwards, particularly highlighting the slimes on floor 49 as the most dangerous. These slimes could merge into gigantic forms, blocking escape routes and using a pincer strategy to corner victims. Despite Veldora and Ramirez's enthusiasm, Rimuru cautioned them that there were more traps to consider, keeping them on edge. Rimuru had more traps in mind, focusing on slowing down explorers by damaging their weapons. Veldora and Ramirez praised the strategy, realizing the value of disabling opponents even if they couldn't defeat them outright. Rimuru emphasized the importance of buying time to come up with permanent solutions for the labyrinth's challenges. When Veldora asked about their plans, Rimuru explained the need to adjust the labyrinth to handle future challenges better, starting with Adelman's boss room. He intended to change the atmosphere there and sought Ramirez's help for the task. Adelman, a former cardinal, needed a front-row partner as a boss, so Rimuru planned to pair him up later. For the floor 70 boss, Rimuru decided to create another elemental colossus, enlisting Kaijin's help, who had returned and was knowledgeable about spirit engineering. Ramirez was thrilled at the prospect of an even stronger colossus. As for floors 80 and below, Rimuru believed time would naturally improve the challenges, especially once Zijin woke up and the dragons evolved. With their basic plan in place, Rimuru acknowledged the need for more time and proposed a test, seeking Veldora's and Ramirez's help, who readily agreed. Masayuki was tasked with focusing on completing the Ogre series in the dungeon rather than progressing past floor 41, as his activities served as good advertising. Rimuru advised Masayuki to stay away from their plans for the time being to avoid getting involved. Miramile then brought up Hinata's inquiry about her reward money for conquering the labyrinth floors, causing Rimuru to ponder the situation. While Hinata technically deserved the rewards for her accomplishments, Rimuru felt conflicted about the idea of rewarding her, considering their collaboration and the nature of their journey as on the field battle training. No way, Rimuru firmly declined the request to give reward money to Hinata. Rimuru believed turning her down might prompt her to challenge the dungeon again, which could be good for their publicity. He delegated the task of informing Hinata to Miramile, appreciating his resolute demeanor for such matters. Rimuru preferred to maintain a friendly relationship with Hinata and didn't want her to resent him. With the meeting concluded, Rimuru left Miramile to handle the situation and continued with his own tasks. Rimuru informed Veldora and Ramirez about their meeting for the next day before heading off with Shion to visit Shuna. They found Shuna busy in the kitchen, efficiently managing her staff and preparations for dinner. Despite the interruption, Shuna eagerly offered her assistance when Rimuru approached her. Expressing regret for not being able to stay and sample the dishes, Rimuru promised to return later. Gobichi, the sous chef, assured Shuna he could handle things in her absence. As they made their way to floor 60, Rimuru thanked Shuna for a sandwich she had made earlier, and Shion volunteered to make a box lunch next time. Rimuru suggested Shion collaborate with Shuna in the kitchen to further improve her skills and ensure she didn't cause any chaos. Maybe tomorrow? Shuna, okay Shion. Let's start with something easy. They seemed to get along well, and Rimuru was pleased with their harmony. As they approached the 60th floor, Rimuru greeted Adelman, who immediately expressed remorse for recent events. Rimuru reassured him, acknowledging their mistake in misjudging his combat abilities. Adelman lamented his defeat, feeling powerless in battle. Rimuru recognized Adelman's potential and asked about his proficiency in holy magic, a type of magic derived from faith rather than ambient magicules. So to cast holy magic, you need a pact with a god who controls the spiritual particles that make up magic. Adelman, being a devout follower of Luminous, once wielded holy magic as a White King, but since he now worships Rimuru, he's lost that ability. Rimuru confirmed Adelman's inability to access holy magic due to the lack of a pact. Shuna, however, revealed that her faith in Rimuru, combined with her unique skill Parser, allows her to mimic holy magic to some extent. Despite being a monster, she believes in Rimuru's power, giving her confidence in her abilities. This revelation puzzled Rimuru, as he remembered Shuna mentioning monsters' capability to use holy magic before. Shuna revealed that she was bluffing about her ability to use holy magic, but Rimuru's explanation about faith and connection to the soul made her realize she might be able to learn it. Rimuru introduced the concept of secret skills of faith and favor, which he learned from Luminous, to help Adelman regain his holy magic abilities. Adelman, excited by the prospect, eagerly accepted the offer. Rimuru also shared the plan with Shion, who was carrying him, ensuring her secrecy about the matter. Shuna expressed interest in learning holy magic and planned to discuss it further with Adelman. Excited by the possibilities, Adelman eagerly anticipated the newfound power he might gain from the secret skills of faith and favor. After some practice, Adelman successfully cast Holy Cannon, a powerful holy spell, impressing Rimuru. Rimuru advised Adelman to practice more to cast higher-level magic and suggested seeking advice from Shuna. When Shuna questioned Rimuru's motives, he evaded the question. Rimuru warned Adelman about the potential damage caused by casting holy spells as a white, proposing a solution by modifying the holy attribute of the spell into a neutral one. Adelman expressed excitement at the prospect of using this modified spell, named Holy Ray, further enhancing his abilities. Holy Ray, a neutral attack spell, was praised by Adelman for its potential. Rimuru suggested that mastering this spell could help Adelman manipulate spiritual particles better, leading to more powerful attacks in the future. Shuna offered to discuss magic with Adelman anytime, easing Rimuru's concerns. Rimuru emphasized the importance of Adelman learning non-damaging holy magic. Then, addressing Adelman's limited attack options, Rimuru proposed bringing in someone to support him in the front row during battles, considering Adelman's role as a back row fighter. Adelman expressed concern about his combat abilities, feeling his skeletal form limited his effectiveness in battle. Rimuru assured him that individual combat was fine but suggested calling upon his friend Alberto for support against multiple opponents. Adelman agreed, acknowledging Alberto's prowess. Rimuru then presented Adelman with a set of gear, including a Curse's sword and cursed mail, crafted by Kurob and Garm. Despite being too risky for living beings due to their life-draining effects, Rimuru decided they were worth keeping rather than discarding. Rimuru showed Adelman the Curse's sword and cursed mail, confirming they didn't affect him as an undead. Adelman checked them and found no adverse effects. Rimuru also gave him a sticky steel thread surcoat for protection and a jet black robe with unique regenerative properties. Adelman planned to give these to Alberto, who would surely appreciate the upgrades. With Alberto's support, Adelman's combat options expanded significantly. Adelman respectfully accepted the jet black robe from Rimuru and agreed to wear it to enhance his presence as a floor guardian. Rimuru also enlisted Ramirez to help renovate the floor into a throne room, envisioning Adelman leading an army of undead. Adelman expressed his readiness to fulfill this role and requested permission to bring one of his pets to the throne room. Rimuru granted permission, emphasizing that Adelman could use his pets in battle as long as they didn't outnumber attackers. Adelman pledged to protect the land entrusted to him and expressed gratitude to Rimuru. Shion interjected with words of encouragement, and although Rimuru found it unnecessary, he didn't comment to avoid confrontation. Rimuru then instructed Adelman to consult Shuna or Ramirez for any questions and proceeded with the renovation plans for the throne room. The next day, everyone gathered at the appointed time, and Ramirez proudly announced the completion of Adelman's throne room. Rimuru expressed confidence in Adelman's improved performance, especially in exposing opponents' skills for analysis by Raphael. However, the meeting was interrupted by Milim storming in, furious about her dragons being defeated in training. She dragged along Gabta, who looked beaten up but proud of his accomplishment. Despite Veldora and Milim arguing over Gabta's training, Rimuru decided to let Gabta choose his path and ordered him to rest. Meanwhile, Ranga returned, also exhausted from intense training with Gabda, which involved continuous battles against monsters and skilled opponents like Caroline and Midre. After Gaba and Ranga recovered, Rimuru learned more about their rigorous training regimen. Milim advised Gaba that he couldn't increase his magicules but could unify with Ranga to solve the issue. She suggested focusing on enhancing his battle senses while leaving the magicule surge to Ranga. Gaba trained intensely in battle sense, and he even acquired the extra skill Sage, which boosted his thinking speed. Rimuru was impressed by his dedication and progress. After spending the night preparing, Rimuru revealed a special item he had developed to Veldora, Ramirez, and Milim. It was inspired by the homunculus Archduke Errol had used earlier. Rimuru explained that the item served as a vessel for the soul, allowing consciousness to transfer to a temporary body, like a homunculus. He had revised the magic involved for his own purposes, calling it a pseudo-soul. While Veldora and Milim were curious, Ramirez wondered if it was food, which wasn't surprising considering her usual interests. Rimuru explained that the device mimicked a soul vessel because he couldn't provide a real soul. He wanted to surprise his friends with its purpose after all the effort he put into it. Then, he handed them black orbs called Master Cores and asked them to imagine a monster they liked. These Master Cores were developed using the magical core of Cherry Beast, isolated within Rimuru's stomach. After some contemplation, the magic in the air interacted with the Master Cores, creating monsters based on their imaginations. Rimuru intended to use these monsters to engage parties in the labyrinth, gathering everyone for this purpose. While everyone marveled at the monsters they created, Rimuru was busy making his own a ghost with a special skill that made it immune to physical attacks. Veldora had a skeleton companion, unable to cast magic but capable of learning later on. Milim's creation was a bouncy, red slime, prompting Rimuru to tease her playfully. Ramirez imagined a suit of living armor, perhaps influenced by her own size insecurities. Rimuru explained his plan to use these monsters as guardians in the labyrinth to deal with intruders, a concept that puzzled some of them initially. As Veldora, Ramirez, and Milim adjusted to their new bodies, Rimuru explained their next step. Veldora pointed out the importance of referring to the intruders in the labyrinth as such rather than as challengers. Rimuru then asked if they believed the monsters they created would be effective against intruders, prompting mixed responses. Rimuru assured them that the real test was about to begin and instructed them to relax and chant Possess, while pointing their pseudo-souls at their monsters. As they did so, their consciousnesses merged with the monsters, and Rimuru's perspective shifted into the skeleton, slime, and suit of armor they had created. Despite initial disorientation, they quickly adapted to their new bodies, expressing excitement and admiration for Rimuru's research. With their success confirmed, Rimuru reminded them of their mission to defend the labyrinth against intruders, which they enthusiastically embraced. Rimuru chuckled as Veldora seemed to grasp his intentions effortlessly. He explained their new approach: instead of controlling the monsters, they would embody them. Milim expressed surprise at the concept of a video game, prompting Veldora to confirm it. Ramirez eagerly asked about their potential for combat and learning, to which Rimuru nodded approvingly at her insight. He recognized that Veldora had quickly understood their plan, turning the labyrinth into a sort of pseudo-MMORPG experience. Their primary goal remained dealing with intruders, but they also anticipated enjoying the novelty of their new forms for experimentation and amusement. Rimuru had envisaged various ways to utilize their avatars, ranging from combat to evolution, aiming to keep their true power hidden while navigating the labyrinth's challenges. This way, we can deal with intruders without revealing our true identities as powerful beings. Milim seemed excited about the prospect, finding the idea of assuming a weaker form intriguing. With everyone on board, they prepared to take action. Veldora suggested dealing with the intruders first before indulging in their newfound game-like experience. Ramirez eagerly anticipated testing her abilities, while Milim expressed her enthusiasm despite not fully understanding the concept. As they stood up, they were ready to interfere with Green Fury's progress and implement Rimuru's plans to hinder them further. First, they needed to adjust to their avatars. Then, getting proper equipment became crucial. They all equipped themselves with resurrection bracelets for infinite charges, ensuring they could respawn as needed. However, being low-level avatars wouldn't be enough to deter Green Fury. So, they decided to visit Kurob's for weapons and armor crafting. Despite Milim's initial reluctance, she eventually agreed to join. Rimuru demonstrated how to return to their original forms by envisioning the word separate, emphasizing the importance of caring for their avatar cores. Veldora and Ramirez suggested fitting the cores onto their bracelets for safekeeping, a plan Rimuru agreed with. However, Milim, eager to stay in her slime form, didn't wait for instructions and jumped into Rimuru's pocket. Despite her impulsive behavior, Rimuru decided against scolding her, recognizing her childlike enthusiasm. Thus, they set off for Kurobes, ready to equip themselves for their upcoming endeavors. After a while, Rimuru and the gang arrived at Kurob's workshop, where they were greeted by Kurobe himself. As they entered, Rimuru noticed the workshop was busier than before, with more apprentices, including monsters. Rimuru apologized for not giving advance notice of their visit, realizing it might have made the staff nervous. He explained that he preferred casual interactions but didn't want to inconvenience anyone. Rimuru reassured the staff, advising them not to be too tense around him. Later, Rimuru learned about a popularity contest held in Tempest, where he was voted as one of the top idols alongside Shuna and Shion, with Milim and Ramirez also ranking high. In Kurobe's chamber, they discussed the equipment they needed, intending to collaborate with Garm for armor. They decided to visit Garm's workshop, causing a stir there as well. Garm agreed to craft the equipment, excited by the creative project. With the work expected to take several days, they trained themselves to become more accustomed to their avatars, engaging in simple tasks like fighting monsters and dealing with traps in the labyrinth. Initially, they struggled, losing to beginner parties and triggering traps, with Ramirez and Veldora often facing mishaps due to traps, while Rimuru and Milim, unaffected by pitfalls, forgot to warn the others. Recognizing Ramirez's mistake of triggering traps, they trained tirelessly, sacrificing sleep to improve teamwork. With thought communication, they coordinated efficiently, utilizing Veldora, Milim, and Ramirez's strengths. As they awaited their equipment, they learned that Team Green Fury had reached floor 40, strategizing carefully. Understanding the limitations of bosses, they proposed having trainees' sisters heal them. As Green Fury approached floor 49, they prepared to confront them, confident in their teamwork despite lacking equipment. Always eager for a fight, they realized they weren't ready for a direct confrontation with Team Green Fury. Instead, they banked on the traps of floor 49 to give them an edge. Just as they were about to commit to their plan, Shion announced that Kurobe's preparations were complete. Excitedly, they received their specialized avatar equipment. Rimuru got a Death Scythe and Hell Garment, Veldora got a Death Blade and Hell Mail, Milim got a Death Stiletto and Crimson Cape that sprouted blood-red wings when equipped, and Ramirez upgraded to Heavy Living Armor and chose a Death Axe. With their new gear equipped, they felt invincible. Their weapons and armor, though novelty items, were incredibly powerful for beginners like them. Plus, the curse placed on them ensured they could never be stolen. As they prepared for battle, they assessed their avatars. Rimuru's ghost focused on magical and spiritual attacks, aiming to become a wizard eventually. Veldora's skeleton was versatile, capable of both physical and magical assaults. Milim's slime prioritized speed and precision strikes, ideal for ambushes from the ceiling, and Ramirez's heavy living armor was a defensive powerhouse, evolving into a tank-like role over time. They were all geared up and ready to go. Their advantage lay in their ability to fight without getting tired, giving them the upper hand in prolonged battles. As they faced Green Fury, they quickly realized the battle was going to be a breeze. Analyzing their avatars objectively would reveal they were already pushing an A in rank, with their equipment playing a significant role. Despite restrictions on their skills, abilities like thought communication and quick magic casting gave them an unbeatable advantage. Veldora's swordsmanship was extraordinary, even mimicking moves from Manga, while Milim's incredible speed surpassed all expectations. Her agility, whether on the ground or ceiling, left their foes bewildered. As a fellow slime, Rimuru was amazed by these newfound capabilities. Milim was having a blast, diving onto enemies' backs and stabbing them with her death stiletto, often ending battles in one swift move. Her slime body made her nearly invulnerable to physical attacks, and targeting her with magic was a challenge due to her speed. Veldora and Milim admired Ramirez, who charged head-on into battles with her death axe, ignoring any advice given to her. Despite her reckless strategy, her sturdy heavy full-plate armor and cancel pain ability made her an effective tank, drawing attention away from the rest of the party. Rimuru, on the other hand, had been experimenting with holy magic, which he found surprisingly easy to use by offering prayers in exchange for control over spiritual particles. This newfound power, combined with their teamwork, made them a formidable force, ultimately leading to their victory over Team Green Fury on the 49th floor. Trying something new paid off when their direct attack failed, so they improved their teamwork and used the traps to their advantage. Rimuru damaged the enemy's weapons with the slime doll and exhausted them with slime rain, while Ramirez distracted them. Milim sneaked up on them while Veldora and Ramirez isolated their support. They crushed their magicians and thieves with their giant slime and forced their core members into the slime pool. The leader of the enemy, surprisingly female, lamented the dissolution of their weapons, revealing they were mercenaries with loyalty to Inglesia. This raised concerns about their motives and origins. Despite this, they celebrated their victory, acknowledging their strength as a team, but Rimuru knew they needed to keep everyone focused on their goals to avoid distractions. Somewhere for Maribel, once a ruler in Europe, now found herself reborn as an otherworlder in the kingdom of Seltra-Zo. In her past life, she wielded immense wealth and viewed war as a mere tool. Her reign was built on suffering, with battles raging and homes destroyed. Yet, she felt no remorse. Now, born into a ruling family, Maribel's family held sway in the Western nations, where a council, led by the enigmatic Granville Razo, governed amidst chaos. Even Maribel's own brothers had never met the 5 elders who held power, but Maribel's memories and determination made her different. Granville could not overlook her presence. The progression of society owes much to the concept of money. From trading crops to embracing a money-based system, civilization has advanced greatly thanks to the convenience and scalability money offers. Initially, coins made of valuable metals like gold and silver ensured stability in currency value. However, as society evolved, paper-based transactions emerged, leading to the rise of banks and the issuance of receipts in exchange for money. This system allowed for lending and earning interest, seemingly creating wealth out of thin air. Yet it also led to the accumulation of unrecoverable debts and economic instability, exacerbated by the transition from coins to paper currency. Maribel, drawing from her past experiences, manipulated this system to her advantage, inflating economic bubbles and using wars to offset debts, ultimately benefiting the wealthy at the expense of weaker nations. Maribel was a skilled master in finance, drawing from her memories of her previous life and her inherent greed as a ruler. Her unique skill, avarice, allowed her to manipulate people's desires, gaining control over them gradually. Observing the world around her, she saw an opportunity to exploit its low standards of civilization and its unified currency system to her advantage. Dreaming of ruling the world, Maribel kept her ambitions hidden, biding her time until she was older. With caution, she concealed her true intentions, ensuring that nobody suspected her true nature. Finally, at the age of 3, she had her first meeting with Granville, setting the stage for her future plans. "So you're Maribel?" asked Granville. "Yes, grandfather. It is a pleasure to meet you," replied Maribel, her greeting not typical for a 3-year-old, but she had planned for it. Granville was different from the others. He was above manipulation. Maribel had methodically brought everyone else under her control by reading their desires, but Granville resisted. Maribel realized that trying to deceive him would have dire consequences. Instead, she chose honesty, recognizing Granville as a potential ally. She confessed her ability to see and manipulate desires, earning Granville's respect. As they opened up to each other, sharing their secrets, Maribel saw their partnership as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Maribel knew she couldn't rely solely on her intellect as a 3-year-old. She was determined to secure her position, understanding that impressing Granville Razo, the influential figure, was crucial. Her efforts paid off when Granville entrusted her with his ambitions for peace and equality under the Razo family's rule. This alliance between the family founder and Maribel, driven by her boundless avarice, was unique. Over the years, Granville mentored Maribel, revealing the inner workings of the Razo family and the truth behind the god Luminous. By age 10, Maribel, second only to Granville in power, was ready to take action against Rimuru, utilizing her skills to the fullest. In the small kingdom of Seltra-Zo, Yuki Kagurazaka, the Grand Master of the Free Guild, was having a conversation with Johann Rostia, one of the 5 elders of the council and prince of the kingdom of Rostia. They met in Seltra-Zo, which housed a safe house operated by the Selt Foreign Information Bureau, the top intelligence agency in the Western nations, making it an ideal spot for confidential meetings. Johann, being a council mainstay, chose this location to avoid detection. Yuki reported that the demon lord Rimuru was becoming suspicious of him, despite his efforts to cover his tracks. While Johann suggested talking his way out of it, Yuki expressed concern about angering Rimuru. Their relationship was strictly business, with the council funding the Free Guild in exchange for their services, a straightforward arrangement on the surface. From the Guild's perspective, they relied heavily on support from the world's nations for funding and special access to carry out their work. Johann Rastia, a key figure in the council and Yuki's benefactor, played a crucial role in the Guild's growth over the years. Yuki understood the importance of maintaining a good relationship with Johann due to his behind-the-scenes support. When Johann questioned Yuki about defeating the demon lord Rimuru, Yuki expressed the impossibility of such a task, even with 100 powerful individuals. Johann criticized Yuki's past actions, particularly his failed conspiracy with demon lord Clayman, which had disrupted their plans for trade routes and managing threats like the Forest of Jura. Maribel Razzo, who had devised the plan, entered the room unexpectedly, seeking answers alongside Johann and Yuki. Maribel turned to Yuki, showing little interest in Johann's presence. Yuki, his attention focused on Maribel, expressed doubt about defeating Rimuru, especially with Vildora by his side. Maribel inquired about Yuki's encounter with Vildora, to which he timidly confirmed. Emphasizing the threat of Vildora's freedom, Maribel stressed the need to thwart Tempest's rise for her family's benefit. Johann echoed her concerns, recalling Vildora's past devastation and urging action. Despite Johann's queries about Yuki's capability to defeat Rimuru, Yuki remained resolute in acknowledging the demon lord's strength. Maribel shifted the discussion to their next steps, leading Yuki to outline their plan of avoiding direct confrontation and utilizing Clayman's intel for future plans. Maribel carefully considered her next steps. She knew that thwarting Rimuru was crucial for the Razzo family's grand plan. Despite the potential advantages of aligning with Rimuru, Maribel saw their conflicting beliefs as a barrier. Her vision involved shaping a world where each nation controlled its own currency, overseen by the council. Maribel aimed for economic dominance, leveraging taxes and conscription to control weaker nations. However, Rimuru's rise disrupted her plans, as she anticipated him forming alliances with the Western nations, jeopardizing her ambitions. Maribel regarded Rimuru as incompatible with her goals, perceiving him as a threat to her pursuit of supremacy. She firmly believed that only one ruler could reign supreme, and Rimuru's presence challenged her authority, making him a significant obstacle to her plans. Maribel knew saying she'd defeat Rimuru was easier than actually accomplishing it. After attending the Founders' Festival to observe him, she realized that Tempest was a city full of desires, poised to become a global trendsetter. As it grew in importance, the Razzo's unilateral power would diminish. Frustrated by Rimuru's influence, Maribel contemplated rendering him harmless through coercion or persuasion, ruling out direct confrontation due to Vildora's unpredictable response. Reflecting on Duke Muse's failed attempt, Maribel acknowledged Rimuru's adeptness at leveraging personal connections. She considered manipulating public sentiment against Rimuru by exacerbating food shortages through strategic market manipulation and fabricated conflicts, intending to sway smaller nations against Rimuru's council bid. It seemed like a straightforward plan for Maribel to execute. However, Maribel faced a dilemma. She realized that engineering food shortages in smaller nations could backfire, potentially giving Rimuru an opportunity to provide aid and garner support. Learning from Duke Muse's failed attempt, she understood the risks of repeating past mistakes. Aware of her limitations, Maribel opted for a cautious approach, considering the possibility of winning Rimuru over to her side. Despite contemplating compromise, Maribel reaffirmed her determination not to falter, relying on her unique skill, avarice, to exert control over Rimuru. She had two methods in mind, one involving gradually influencing Rimuru's desires through repeated interactions, and the other, a riskier approach, swiftly imposing her will upon him. Knowing the dangers involved, Maribel abandoned the latter tactic when dealing with Granville, opting for careful planning and deliberation instead. Maribel understood the limitations of her avarice skill, which relied on time and the target's level of desire. Without sufficient desire, she couldn't exert control over them effectively. This was why she couldn't manipulate Hinata the Saint's mind, as their limited interactions didn't provide enough opportunity. However, her secret meetings with Yuki offered ample chances to influence him. Now, her focus shifted to Rimuru. Despite his outrageous behavior, Maribel observed that his desires seemed relatively small. Nevertheless, she believed she could gradually gain control over him with consistent effort. As a last resort, she considered using her final option to assert dominance over Rimuru and potentially even Vildora, the feared storm dragon. With a clear plan in mind, Maribel decided to continue observing Rimuru closely to devise the safest approach to subdue him. But Yuki cautioned against confronting Rimuru directly, opting instead for Kazalim, disguised as Kigali, to guide him through the ruins safely. Maribel saw an opportunity in this plan and suggested inviting Rimuru to join the council, knowing it was one of his desires. Yuki explained Rimuru's wish to cooperate with humans, which Maribel found foolish. She proposed manipulating Rimuru once he joined the council, much like she controlled Yuki. Despite Maribel's remarks in front of him, Yuki remained oblivious to her influence, highlighting her control over him. The conversation ended with speculation about Maribel's ability to dominate Rimuru, comparing him to a child before her authority. When Johan expressed concern about the durability of her control, Maribel reassured him, boasting of her absolute dominance once she influenced someone's desires. She possessed the skill avarice, embodying greed to the fullest extent, ensuring nobody could desire more than her. Johan, wary of her power, complied with her request to send a letter to Rimuru. Maribel, taking charge effortlessly, drafted the letter, instilling fear in Johan with her authoritative demeanor. Even after they left, Maribel remained immersed in her scheming, relishing the prospect of manipulating events to her advantage. Back to Tempest. The man collapsed to the ground, his eyes wide with shock as crimson particles scattered around him. Milim's laughter echoed through the hall, causing the remaining members of his group to tense up nervously. They huddled together, but it was futile as Milim's tornado blade tore through them. The powerful attack sliced through multiple enemies at once. Milim had struck first, swiftly taking out one member of the group before Rimuru unleashed his magic. Caught off guard, the adventurers were defenseless against their coordinated assault. As the survivors realized the severity of their situation, they unleashed a flurry of curses towards us. They were a group of adventurers challenging the labyrinth, but their surprise attack and strategic advantage proved too much for them. Now that the adventurers could see them, the angry fighters charged towards them. Vildora and Ramirez seemed to be enjoying themselves as they held their ground against the attackers. With the enemy's stamina visibly dwindling, Rimuru used his analysis magic to assess the situation. He could see the fighters' health bars, indicating they were nearly depleted. Confident in his allies' abilities, Rimuru instructed them to handle the remaining enemies on their own. Thanks to their teamwork and lack of rear support from the adventurers, Vildora and Ramirez swiftly dispatched their opponents. Rimuru reflected on their successful tactic of targeting scouts and support units first, acknowledging that while effective, they needed to diversify their strategies as opponents became more adept at countering them. As Rimuru reflected on their recent victory, the last challenger vanished, marking the end of another battle. His companions, Vildora and Ramirez, celebrated their triumph, boasting about their invincibility. Their purpose in the labyrinth was clear. They were researching new battle techniques to prepare for future challengers, including the formidable Team Green Fury, who they had defeated previously. Despite Team Green Fury's absence, Rimuru's group continued to delve into the labyrinth, keeping the challenges lively. Meanwhile, news of Masayuki's party reaching floor 40 spread, inspiring other challengers to aim for the same milestone. Rimuru's decision to release videos of boss battles further fueled excitement among the townsfolk, drawing attention to their endeavors. To Miromile and Rimuru, this presented a business opportunity. In a world without TV, labyrinth battle footage became prime entertainment. They considered editing out the graphic parts, but also pondered offering an uncut version for the right price. Broadcasting and likeness rights were also on the table, tasks delegated to Miromile. They saw potential in Masayuki's smile for endorsement deals and imagined a prosperous future. Using data from the labyrinth, particularly through Raphael's analysis, they produced highlight reels for challengers, boosting enthusiasm and even helping one find a girlfriend. People now referred to them as the dungeon dominators, both fearing and respecting their prowess. Rimuru's ghost avatar sported a fear aura, adding to its intimidating presence, while Vildora's skeleton underwent upgrades to a golden hue thanks to Rimuru's experimentation with orichalk, a strong and durable alloy. Milim, now known as Scarlet, gained celebrity status for her incredible speed and battle prowess, resembling a crimson shooting star. Ramirez adopted a more ominous aura, with a death aura surrounding her, enhancing her formidable presence in battle. Her aggressive fighting style earned her a reputation as a berserker knight, surpassing even her original strength. Their fame grew rapidly among the challengers, who now feared and respected them for their strength and malice. Despite this, their primary focus remained on researching fighting techniques within the labyrinth. dedicating themselves to this task wholeheartedly. They encountered challengers who used rare skills and original magics, providing valuable learning opportunities. With Raphael's ability to gather data directly from the labyrinth, their research efforts expanded, turning the dungeon into a rich source of information. Additionally, they discovered that the knowledge gained in their avatar forms transferred to their original bodies, prompting considerations for new training methods. However, their attempt to conquer their own labyrinth ended in defeat against the formidable Buvix on floor 50, leading them to prioritize character development for research purposes. As they continued their exploration, an emergency visitor interrupted their activities, signaling a return to their office for further investigation. Upon entering the room, they found Shuna and Rigurd waiting, along with someone familiar, Frey, the ex-demon lord, casually seated in one of the chairs. It seemed she was the emergency visitor. Frey's attention immediately turned to Milim, addressing her with a smile but hinting at an interrogation about an assignment. The smile didn't waver, but it felt more like a friendly facade masking something unsettling. Even though the questions weren't directed at them, the atmosphere made them uneasy, reminiscent of a childhood memory when a friend's unfinished homework was discovered by his mother, leading to a tense situation. Ah, the memories. When Milim saw Frey, she panicked, trying to explain herself nervously. Rimuru and the others quickly distanced themselves from the situation, emphasizing they weren't involved. Vildora and Ramirez chimed in, apologizing for unintentionally delaying Milim from her work and urging her to return. Ramirez signaled their solidarity with Rimuru's plan. Despite Milim's tearful plea, Frey remained unmoved, asserting her control and taking Milim away, leaving Rimuru feeling unable to intervene and hoping to avoid any further entanglement in the situation. That had been a close call. Just when Rimuru thought they had escaped unscathed, Shuna's unexpected appearance brought forth a sharp question. Rimuru felt a phantom sweat forming on their forehead as they scrambled to come up with an excuse. However, before they could utter a word, Vildora decided to make a swift exit, citing a need to focus on his research. Following Vildora's lead, Ramirez also left the scene, leaving Rimuru feeling abandoned. Panicked and unable to think of a convincing excuse, Rimuru watched their companions depart, their mind racing for a solution to avoid Shuna's potential anger. Rimuru turned to Raphael, their trusted advisor, for help in crafting an excuse to avoid Shuna's questioning. However, Raphael surprised them by advising against making excuses and suggested standing their ground instead. Confused by this advice, Rimuru was saved by the timely arrival of Miramile, who entered the room looking flustered. Following Raphael's guidance, Rimuru remained composed and greeted Miramile as if they had been expecting them. Miramile seemed a bit puzzled but went along with Rimuru's response, diffusing the situation smoothly. Rimuru received a letter from the council, and Miramile asked if they had read it yet, suspecting it might be about Tempest's admission. Rimuru was relieved but also impressed by how Raphael predicted the council's actions. Although Rimuru tried to play it cool, Raphael pointed out that Rimuru had been too focused on games to notice earlier developments. Rimuru improvised a response about secret investigations, which fooled everyone. Afterward, as Rimuru read the letter, they realized it was indeed an invitation from the council. Reflecting on the close call, Rimuru resolved to be more cautious and balance their time between responsibilities and leisure activities. The Council of the West is a group of nations near the Forest of Jura that meets monthly in Inglesia to discuss common issues. Each nation, big or small, has equal say in decisions, aiming for the overall benefit of humanity by addressing problems like monsters, disasters, and resource distribution. Funding comes from member nations, with larger contributors gaining more representation. Despite focusing on collective welfare, countries use the Council to boost their own prestige and influence. They vie for favorable treatment and prioritize their own interests when crises arise. The Council's funds were used for decision-making through majority vote among representatives. For instance, if a dangerous monster appeared, the Free Guild would be called upon to handle it, with nations sending adventurers based on their contributions. Stronger nations prioritized their own safety, leaving weaker ones vulnerable. Late payments resulted in expulsion, leaving nations without support during crises. Contributions varied by representation, limiting even powerful nations like Farmus to around 5 delegates. The fall of Farmus and the rise of the Jura Tempest Federation added tension to council discussions. After the Tempest Founders Festival, there was chaos in the council's special session, with representatives arguing loudly. Hinata Sakaguchi attended as a guest due to her connection with Demon Lord Rimuru. While she could have declined, she chose to join as they discussed Tempest's admission, a crucial matter for the Western nations. Hinata, used to efficient meetings, found the council's disarray frustrating, with arguments lacking substance. Some debated the Demon Lord's strength, while others praised it, leaving Hinata unimpressed by their thoughtlessness. The Demon Lord Rimuru claimed control over the forest of Jura, promising not to send monsters beyond its borders. This reassured nations fearful of monster attacks, especially those near Tempest. Bordering countries, excited by the Founders' Festival and Tempest's prosperity, welcomed Rimuru's rule, seeing potential benefits. Others, facing different threats, were cautious, relying on groups like the Free Guild and Crusaders for protection. Some skipped the festival, distrustful of monsters. Larger, safer nations and their dependents saw opportunity, while skeptical counselors feared Rimuru's power and accused border nations of betrayal. With conflicting interests at play, the meeting grew chaotic. Many representatives prioritized their own interests, prompting discussions about Tempest's admission and the potential risks involved. Some advocated for welcoming Tempest as a friend, while others expressed concerns about their respect for international laws. Representatives from wealthy nations stirred the pot, guiding discussions towards their desired conclusion. Hinata sympathized with smaller nations' representatives who lacked information and faced difficult choices. Despite her desire to speak up, Hinata remained silent, recognizing the inevitability of Tempest's acceptance. Senior representatives like Prince Johann Rostia discussed the implications of allying with Tempest amid concerns about the Eastern Empire's movements. After Johann's mentioned the Eastern Empire, it piqued curiosity and worry among the attendees. Hinata observed the shift from polite talk to serious discussion, noticing how leaders cautiously shared important details. Johann's revelation about increased military actions by the Eastern Empire brought a hush over the room. While Hinata and leaders like Gazelle Dwargo were likely aware of such developments, Rimuru's subtle involvement hinted at a deeper understanding of Eastern affairs. However, Rimuru's motives might have been misunderstood by the assembly. Johann's revelation alarmed many council members, especially those from smaller nations with limited military strength, highlighting the potential challenges they would face due to regional militarization. As Johann addressed the chamber, urging everyone to remain calm, Hinata recognized that the discussion had shifted to the pressing issue of the Eastern Empire. Concerns were voiced about how to respond and defend against potential aggression. Count Gaben from Inglesia called for order, emphasizing the significance of Rimuru's alliance and the potential aid it could offer against the Eastern threat. Johann echoed Gaben's sentiments, suggesting that recognizing Tempest as a member could strengthen their defense. This suggestion garnered agreement from many, considering the Empire's hostile intentions contrasted with Tempest's rational approach. The Empire posed a clear danger, and aligning with Tempest seemed a logical choice to confront this shared enemy. Amidst the orchestrated commotion, Hinata, a non-voting attendee, observed the scripted performance with weariness, reflecting on the tediousness of the session. Her presence primarily served to ensure Rimuru's stability, providing reassurance to the council members apprehensive about inviting a demon lord into their fold. The Empire's military actions seemed more like a bluff than a real threat, especially with obstacles like the Forest of Jura and the armed nation of Dworgen in their path. They missed their chance before Rimuru became a demon lord and Vildora reappeared, leaving them too cautious to make a move now. Despite ongoing vigilance from Rimuru and Gazelle, Hinata believed the Empire posed little concern. Johann and Gaben seemed to share her perspective, diverting attention to external threats while consolidating their own power. With Tempest's admission approved, the meeting concluded, leaving Hinata disillusioned with dealings among the nobility. After the draining council meeting, Hinata was approached by Prince Elric, the first prince of Inglesia, who sought her assistance. Despite not knowing Hinata well, Elric casually asked for a favor, wanting to test the demon lord Rimuru's behavior at the next council gathering. He hoped Hinata would provide security, fearing Rimuru's potential disruption. Hinata, unimpressed by Elric's attitude, reluctantly listened as he explained his request, feeling annoyed by his presumptuous demeanor. Elric, accustomed to privilege, expected compliance from everyone, including Hinata, and even his bodyguards assumed she would comply without question. Hinata hesitated, feeling skeptical about Prince Elric's request. She had the right to refuse, especially given his arrogant demeanor. Elric praised her extensively, citing her renowned strength in past encounter with Rimuru, but Hinata knew better than to provoke a demon lord intentionally. Despite Rimuru's kindness, he remained a formidable entity, and Hinata couldn't guarantee victory in another confrontation. Elric's persistence grated on her, compounded by the intrusion of his bodyguard, Reiner, who assumed she would comply unquestioningly. But Hinata stood her ground, citing the non-aggression pact between the Western Holy Church and Tempest and warning against angering Rimuru. Both Elric and Reiner were taken aback by her refusal, unable to comprehend that she would defy their expectations. Hinata had no intention of complying with Prince Elric's request, especially since it wasn't made through official channels. If the council had made the request formally, Hinata wouldn't have had the liberty to refuse. However, she was relieved that this direct approach allowed her to decline without diplomatic repercussions. Elric and his bodyguards attempted to pressure her, warning of consequences and questioning the Western Holy Church's stance on Rimuru. Despite their persistence, Hinata stood firm in her decision, knowing that provoking a demon lord like Rimuru was unwise. As she left the encounter behind, Hinata couldn't shake off the worry about their reckless intentions and the possibility of a planned scheme. Nonetheless, she resolved to remain cautious in future interactions, wary of any potential traps or confrontations with Rimuru. With the invitation in hand, Rimuru arrived in Inglesia, where he was given luxurious accommodations. Benimaru was by his side, while Suei gathered information from his spies. Rimuru missed Ranga's company, who was often with Gabda now. Gabda, having recovered from Milan's training, faced new challenges as Milan decided to test him regularly in battles against Caroline. Rimuru brought Benimaru and Shuna along, opting for a small group due to potential complications. He left Shion behind to manage affairs and focused on keeping things orderly. Other members of his top staff like Geld, Diablo, and Hakuro were occupied with various tasks, leaving only Benimaru, Shuna, and Rimuru to attend the meeting in Inglesia, where they met up with Suei. Then, their first stop in Inglesia was at clothing stores boasting modern Japanese-style show windows, attracting many passers-by and indicating the city's development. Rimuru marveled at the tall windows considering their cost, but noted the store's successful business judging by the crowd. He remembered his town's interest in such windows and decided to adopt the custom, quickly producing them with Raphael's help. They were shopping at Shuna's request, and she admired the new fashions, determined not to fall behind. Rimuru generously offered to cover the costs, appreciating their hard work. He decided to give them all new clothes, feeling Benimaru and Suei's battle gear was too imposing for the city streets, and thinking Shuna could use some fashionable casual wear instead of her usual shrine maiden garb. So Rimuru let Benimaru and Suei choose their favorite outfits, jackets, shirts, and skinny jeans for them, which surprisingly looked good. Shuna opted for a fluffy white skirt and nice blue vest, which Rimuru found cute and refreshing. They decided to buy several outfits, using them as models for future sewing projects. Rimuru also got a dark blue dress as a souvenir for Shion, expecting her to stand out in it. After the purchase, everyone changed into their new clothes on site. Shuna was thrilled with her box of clothes, in contrast to Shion's usual disappointment. Benimaru and Suei seemed pleased too, despite earlier complaints. Rimuru, on the other hand, relied on store clerks' recommendations, making quick decisions. Overall, the outing was a success, and Rimuru was glad to show his appreciation to his hard-working companions. After changing into their new clothes, Rimuru and the others headed to Yoshida's cafe, now managed by his trainee, which offered them a discount as suppliers. They planned to meet Hinata there, who had arrived earlier in Inglesia. While waiting, Suei briefed Rimuru on the rumors and discussions he had gathered from across the Western nations, highlighting the positive response to the Founders' Festival and the growing interest in the dungeon. Rimuru then inquired about the investigation into the merchants and Duke Muse, learning that while there were no direct connections to suspicious figures, the merchants had dealings with government officials linked to Duke Muse, raising concerns about his involvement. So it seemed likely that the merchants were following Muse's orders. However, since Muse had covered his tracks well, Rimuru decided not to pursue the investigation further. Concerned about Muse's potential involvement in a secret group plotting against them, Rimuru planned to keep him under surveillance. However, Suei revealed that Muse had been killed by a long-range attack, raising suspicions about a powerful and secretive cabal operating within the Western nations. Rimuru began to worry about the cabal's capabilities, especially if they had noticed Suei's investigations, indicating a potential threat to their plans. So it seemed that Muse was silenced, possibly by a highly skilled adversary. Suei couldn't detect any presence until Muse fell, leaving him feeling disheartened. Rimuru, trying to console him, speculated that the attacker must have been using a long-range method like a sniper, a concept unfamiliar to Benimaru and Soei. However, Hinata mentioned Yuki having a handgun, surprising everyone. Hinata's sudden appearance startled Rimuru, embarrassing him in front of the others, who found it amusing. Shuna scolded them, while Rimuru chuckled at himself, realizing his mistake and acting haughty. Despite his momentary embarrassment, there was no malicious intent detected. With Hinata joining them, they all decided to order lunch, enjoying a variety of dishes for a reasonable price. After the meal, Rimuru opted for coffee with sugar and milk, aiming for a balance of bitter and sweet flavors. Hinata couldn't resist teasing Rimuru about his drink choice, likening it to a café au lait, and then made a playful comment about Rimuru's outfit, suggesting it appeared youthful. Despite Shuna's attempt to reassure Rimuru, the remarks seemed to leave Rimuru feeling a bit self-conscious, regretting trusting the store employee's fashion advice. Despite the momentary discomfort, they all continued their conversation, with Rimuru quietly pondering the comment as they moved on to other topics. With the late Duke Muse's murder on their minds, they speculated about the weapon used, considering the possibility of a sniper rifle. Hinata questioned whether handguns had enough range for such an attack, prompting them to ponder the existence of sniper rifles in their world. Rimuru decided to describe his vision of a sniper rifle to his companions through thought communication, receiving mixed reactions. While Benimaru wasn't particularly impressed, Soei recognized the threat it posed, acknowledging his lack of countermeasures as a bodyguard. Shuna expressed eagerness to create her own sniper rifle, sparking concern from Rimuru about introducing such powerful weapons into their world's warfare dynamics. Aware of the destructive potential of guns from his knowledge of another world, Rimuru hesitated to endorse their development, preferring to focus on other means of defense against magical threats. Well, magic doesn't run out like bullets do, but making stronger guns could still be a problem if they end up in the wrong hands. Let's keep our gun research low-key for now, Rimuru suggested, considering the potential dangers of widespread gun ownership. They decided to maintain confidentiality and focus on research only, calming Shuna's eagerness. Suddenly, Raphael warned of the risk of suspicion falling on someone near the victim if a shooting occurred, prompting Rimuru to realize the danger of being framed for murder. They resolved to be cautious at the upcoming council meeting, mindful of the potential threat of magic-infused bullets and the risk of being targeted due to their prominence. Soei pledged to enhance security, showing his proactive approach to the situation. Rimuru expressed gratitude for Soei's assurance in handling suspects, then redirected the conversation to the reason for his summoning. He hadn't been briefed yet on the agenda for the upcoming council meeting, but he suspected it was about Tempest's integration into the council. Despite rumors circulating about dragons and demon lords causing trouble, Rimuru remained confident in his assessment. Hinata seemed skeptical, prompting Raphael to deduce her current thoughts. Rimuru realized his sneering reaction to Hinata's explanation might have backfired, but he couldn't shake off his worries about the upcoming council meeting. While he hadn't received any official briefing yet, he speculated about various topics they might discuss, causing him some anxiety. However, Raphael's confidence in the subject being Tempest's admission reassured him somewhat. Hinata cautioned him against making any missteps during the QA session, emphasizing the importance of maintaining composure as a demon lord. Rimuru acknowledged her advice, aware of the implications for Lubelius's reputation if he were to falter. As the conversation shifted to Soei's findings, Rimuru remained attentive, curious about the motives behind the ministerial-level officials' interest in Tempest's defensive capabilities against the Eastern Empire. Hinata's quick understanding of Soei's point hinted at her awareness of the situation, while Benimaru's assurance eased Soei's concerns. Rimuru, confident in his own analysis and Raphael's predictions, sought to reassure Soei further. Rimuru explained his reasoning, considering potential invasion routes for the Empire and the challenges associated with each option. Despite Soei's serious demeanor, Rimuru's logical approach aimed to alleviate his worries by dissecting the situation logically. The sea route was risky due to the presence of large sea creatures, like spear tuna, which could easily damage ships. Even military vessels were vulnerable to these creatures, making the journey perilous and only attempted by skilled merchants. As for the Kanayat Mountains route, it led through the Dragon's Nest, where dragons ruled and posed a significant threat to any large army passing through. Negotiation with the dragons was impossible, and if they perceived any hostility, they would attack without mercy. Additionally, traversing the rugged mountains was difficult, especially during winter when snow and ice blocked the path, making it impassable. Therefore, any wise strategist would avoid this route altogether. So, the only viable route left was through the forest of Jura, which belonged to the Demon Lord. Considering the presence of Veldora, the storm dragon, who had become widely known after defeating the Pharmus army, the Empire was hesitant to make any aggressive moves. This fear had restrained them even before Veldora's awakening, and now they were practically immobilized. Spread rumors about Veldora's power had likely deterred them from taking action against us. However, Raphael reminded them to remain cautious as situations could change rapidly and new information could alter their assumptions. Despite their suspicions about the Empire's intentions, conducting a thorough investigation was challenging due to their limited resources. Soai's efforts with his shadow familiars proved ineffective against the Empire's protective barrier, leaving them with few options for espionage. It was challenging to find suitable candidates for risky missions in unknown territories, limiting their choices to individuals recommended by Soai. Detaching them from current tasks would disrupt their operations. Soai, despite his talents, could only deploy 6 replications at once, needing to reserve some for emergencies. While some representatives spread rumors about the Empire's actions, Hinata offered to conduct investigations herself, showing her cautious nature akin to Raphael's guidance. Despite initially underestimating her, Rimuru agreed, considering Raphael's suggestion to investigate Dworgen's military activities due to its underground cities. Hinata accepted the task, including examining the structure of the Dwarven Kingdom. Reflecting on the importance of caution, Rimuru appreciated Hinata's proactive approach and agreed to her assistance, recognizing the need to address potential threats promptly. They continued their discussion in the cafe, shielded by a magical barrier, ensuring privacy. Hinata warned Rimuru about people trying to manipulate them, especially concerning military matters, urging caution. She explained that joining the council meant managing the forest of Jura, a condition unanimously agreed upon by member nations to defend against the Empire. Hinata advised Rimuru to be cautious about admitting certain intentions openly, as other leaders might exploit them. She suggested that deploying troops to other nations could establish obligations to Rimuru, potentially enhancing their influence. As they wrapped up their discussion over lunch, Rimuru and the others considered the idea of deploying their army to foreign lands for peacetime purposes, seeing it as a way to expand their influence. Despite some reservations, they all agreed it was a strategic move. Hinata then warned Ru about potential trouble at the upcoming event, advising caution and restraint. Rimuru assured her that he understood, and they parted ways. Hinata's concern puzzled Rimuru, but he acknowledged her intentions nonetheless. With that settled, they left the cafe, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them at the event. The next day, Rimuru and his companions, Benimaru, Soei, and Shuna, dressed smartly in suits, made their way to the council's meeting hall. Despite carrying weapons concealed within Rimuru's stomach, they appeared unarmed. Thanks to Hinata's briefing, Rimuru felt confident about the council meeting. While some councilors might seek to exploit them, Rimuru's worries about his admission to the council had dissipated. He hoped to be recognized as a friend to humankind, a step towards his vision of a world where humans and monsters lived in harmony. However, he acknowledged the complexities of dealing with humans' greed and their focus on personal gain, contrasting with the simpler nature of monsters. With these thoughts in mind, Rimuru tempered his expectations for the meeting ahead. Upon arriving at the council hall, Rimuru was greeted warmly by several councilors from neighboring nations who sought to improve relations after hearing positive feedback about him from Founders Festival attendees. Despite Hinata's earlier warnings, Rimuru felt at ease as the councilors expressed admiration for his sociability and extended invitations for future events. However, his mood quickly soured when another group of representatives, seemingly more influential, dismissed his entourage and asserted their superiority. Soai, communicating via thought communication, explained the hierarchy within the council, where social standing dictated interactions. Despite feeling frustrated, Rimuru reluctantly engaged with the condescending representatives, who offered to teach him noble etiquette, much to his chagrin. A simple question from Rimuru was met with condescending laughter from the nobility, leaving him unsure if they were intentionally rude or just naturally stuck up. Despite their demeanor, Rimuru found it preferable to be treated with familiarity rather than fear, or so he thought. The nobles expressed interest in Rimuru's projects, particularly the Magitrain system, and offered to support it, albeit with expectations of favors in return. Feeling increasingly frustrated by their demands and lack of consideration for his priorities, Rimuru struggled to maintain his composure. The representative from Lakia, in particular, seemed to be hinting at a bribe, disregarding Rimuru's status as a demon lord. Despite his irritation, Rimuru knew he had to exercise patience and diplomacy in dealing with these demanding nobles. The nations near the forest of Jura faced monster threats, while those farther inland enjoyed peace and security. Despite their prosperity, these inland nations didn't seem to regard Rimuru, a demon lord, with much importance, which disappointed him. Dealing with demanding nobles, Rimuru struggled to maintain his composure, feeling frustrated and regretful for entertaining their requests. He considered yelling at them and realized the burden he unintentionally placed on his agent Miromile. Employing a polite but vague response tactic, Rimuru managed to deflect their demands, relieved when they finally left. Reflecting on the experience, Rimuru found it taxing but valuable, hoping to avoid further trouble as he entered the council hall. As the attendants guided them to their seats, Benimaru expressed disbelief at Rimuru's decision to let the demanding nobles go. Soei and Shuna quickly defended Rimuru, praising his calm demeanor and broad-mindedness, which Rimuru decided to go along with. Despite his inner anger, Rimuru appreciated their support and took the opportunity to impart some advice to Benimaru about dealing with such situations. He spent some time lecturing them on how to interact with humans, relying on Soei and Shuna's misinterpretation of his emotions to maintain harmony within the group. The seats were arranged like a fan, with Rimuru at the base, where the chairman would normally sit, drawing everyone's attention to him. His associates stood behind him, and the chairman, hosting from a safer spot, seemed wary, probably because Rimuru was a demon lord. As the meeting began, Rimuru had to stay composed despite the pressure. Hinata had briefed him on the agenda, which included Tempest joining the Council of the West. The conditions debated were about following international law, accessing the economic sphere, and providing military support. Adhering to international law was fine for Rimuru, as it meant each merchant would follow the rules of the country they operated in. To ensure fairness, Tempest needed its own laws, which Raphael, Rimuru's advisor, helped draft by referencing laws from various nations. They already sent these laws to the council, so that part was sorted out. Allowing access to their economy raised some issues. In this world, there were no patents, so whoever made the best version of something usually won. However, there was a threat known as the Heavenly Army that attacked whenever civilization advanced too much, destroying cities. That's why there was no gas or electricity there. Despite this, life was good because of magic and magic-driven items, which provided for basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter. The cities were pleasant to live in, but the problem arose when people started learning about their technology, like the Lakian guy asking about magitrains. This led to debates among member nations during the conference, with some wanting a share in their technology. While open markets weren't an issue, being expected to share all their tech was concerning, as it could lead to exploitation in the future. This made Rimuru realize why he was worried in the first place. Regarding the third condition about sharing military power, there needed to be some discussion. Following Hinata's advice, Soei conducted more research. It was clear that some nations wanted to utilize their military strength under the guise of cooperation, but the same applied to them as well. Tempest would manage the forest of Jura, dealing with monster-related issues, which was agreed upon early on. This arrangement worked well for them. They would cover the expenses for defending the forest, which pleased the council and ensured stability in world affairs. Smaller nations also sought their assistance in defense, especially against flying monsters, which posed a significant threat. These nations couldn't afford extensive defense budgets and relied on patrols and adventurers. Tempest proposed a defense fee arrangement, allowing nations to utilize their services while strengthening their position and influence. Moreover, in the event of an Empire attack, Tempest's strategic location made them a valuable ally for rear support. The goal was to establish overwhelming military superiority, encouraging other nations to align with them for mutual benefit. As each representative presented their demands, the chairman eventually turned to Rimuru, asking for any objections to the conditions set for the Jura Tempest Federation's admission. Rimuru realized he needed to respond tactfully to avoid consenting to everything without proper consideration. He felt annoyed that such important matters weren't discussed and debated on paper beforehand. With Raphael's help, Rimuru prepared a list of doubts and alternative suggestions for each condition, ensuring he still benefited even if taken advantage of. Rimuru handed the documents to Benimaru, who delivered them to the chairman, leaving him surprised by the thorough revisions. Rimuru offered to discuss any concerns, but the chairman requested time for debate, acknowledging he couldn't rush the process. Rimuru agreed, knowing he could deepen ties with accepting nations if necessary. Rimuru couldn't hold back anymore, his frustration boiling over as he watched the desk suspended in the air before crashing to the ground. Hinata's cold gaze spoke volumes without a word, confirming his suspicions. With a heavy stomp, Rimuru obliterated the desk, feeling a mix of satisfaction and regret. He tried to maintain his composed demeanor, but the relentless demands of the counselors pushed him to his breaking point. Despite being known for his patience and maturity, dealing with these greedy, self-serving individuals tested his limits unlike anything before. It was a stark contrast to his usual interactions with Milim, highlighting the unpleasant reality of facing a room full of unappealing, materialistic old men driven by their insatiable desires. It's all started after Rimuru handed over the document. After a long break, the meeting restarted. When the representative handed over a list of demands, the chairman seemed tired. The demands were unreasonable. They wanted a new train line, weapons, control of a special place, and taxes, all in favor of them. Rimuru got angry quickly. The demands weren't fair at all. Rimuru decided they'd rather not deal with humans than agree to such unfair terms. Rimuru got really mad and smashed the desk, making everyone quiet down. Shuna, with a smile, backed Rimuru up, making the counselors scared. Rimuru asked the chairman a question, but the chairman just stayed quiet, feeling ashamed. Rimuru wanted answers and wasn't going to accept silence. Rimuru explained that their nation was already strong economically and just wanted to join the council to show they weren't enemies to humans. But if the council didn't want that, Rimuru wouldn't push it. Rimuru spoke calmly, but it made the representatives scared. Rimuru didn't use any special powers to scare them more. He just wanted to express their opinions and feelings. The representatives started making excuses, saying they didn't mean any harm with their demands. But Rimuru got annoyed listening to their excuses. He didn't like being called Sir instead of a proper title like King. It felt like they weren't respected as a leader of their nation. Rimuru felt like the representatives looked down on them in their country, which made him really mad. He could handle being looked down on personally, but not their whole country. Rimuru, as a demon lord, expected to be treated with respect, but this situation was worse than he thought. He questioned the motive behind the demands, suggesting it seemed like they wanted to be treated like slaves. The counselors argued against this, but negotiating with them was frustrating. Rimuru wondered if Yuki, who manipulated these counselors, was incredibly cunning. He wished he could be as cunning but doubted his ability. He heard a voice, maybe Raphael's, but dismissed it as imagination, feeling he was relying too much on his assistant. Rimuru shook off these thoughts and focused on the counselors. Rimuru realized he didn't know how to fix the mess he created by getting angry. The representatives were desperate for a solution, and so was he. Suddenly a voice, Raphael, suggested removing spiritual interference affecting the room. Rimuru agreed without thinking. As soon as they did, the counselors started speaking up, acknowledging Rimuru's anger and questioning the unfair demands. Rimuru felt relieved, knowing Raphael helped again. Rimuru tried to act cool, but Shuna noticed the change and praised them. Raphael explained that it was a type of spiritual interference skill, and Rimuru's anger inadvertently canceled it. Rimuru suggested that the spiritual interference affected the counselors' judgment, impressing Shuna and the crew. They agreed with Rimuru's explanation, avoiding mentioning their own anger outburst. This excuse also helped justify their actions to Hinata. However, Rimuru still wondered who caused the interference. They decided not to dwell on it and focused on the current problems. The counselors were confronting the group responsible for the unfair demands, who seemed unfazed. Rimuru then noticed some strange movements and heard footsteps, suspecting a planned action. They considered the possibility of a setup or a threat from distant nations. As soldiers entered the chamber, led by a larger man, Rimuru prepared for what might come next. The large man came in shouting, insulting Rimuru, and trying to provoke a fight. Rimuru and their friends were surprised and puzzled by his behavior, realizing it was part of a plan. However, Raphael confirmed the man didn't have any deep intentions. Rimuru calmly introduced themselves, trying to understand the man's motives. Despite Rimuru's attempts to reason with him, the man persisted, claiming he wanted to defeat Rimuru and control all monsters. Rimuru didn't understand what he meant and felt confused by his words. Rimuru noticed the man holding an orb of domination, a powerful artifact. However, Raphael reassured Rimuru that it wouldn't work on them. Rimuru decided to stand up to confront the situation, causing panic among the counselors. The chairman tried to calm Rimuru down, insisting that nobody from the council was behind the man's actions. He suggested consulting with Lady Hinata for confirmation. Rimuru trusted the chairman and Hinata and decided to wait and observe. As the counselors questioned the situation, they realized that Inglesia's royal family emblem on the soldier's armor indicated they weren't involved. It seemed like a smaller group acted independently, causing chaos. Amidst the chaos, Hinata stepped in to confront the large man, named Reiner. She scolded him for disrupting the council session and reminded him that soldiers weren't allowed inside. The chairman also joined in, reprimanding the group. However, instead of Reiner, Count Gabin of Inglesia claimed responsibility for bringing the soldiers to discipline Rimuru. This shocked the chairman and other councillors, as it implicated a fellow councillor in the situation. Representative Johann Rostia, a prince, expressed his outrage, siding with Rimuru. Despite the verbal abuse, Rimuru decided to endure it, realizing that Hinata's impartial observation could work in their favor. As tensions escalated, Gabon declared hostility towards Rimuru, claiming that Reiner, the strongest man in Inglesia, was there to defeat Rimuru and make them his pawn. This declaration shocked many councillors, who protested against Gabon's actions. However, Gaban remained steadfast, supported by several councillors. Just as the situation seemed dire, a man, Prince Elric, entered the chamber, seemingly in charge. Hinata, acknowledging him as the prince, indicated his authority. Prince Elric accused Hinata of abandoning her duty as guardian of humankind due to fear of Rimuru. This angered Hinata, but Prince Elric continued to provoke her, insulting her and challenging her abilities. Rimuru felt uneasy witnessing the confrontation, realizing the gravity of the situation as tensions rose. Now, Rimuru found himself targeted again. Prince Elric's disrespectful behavior towards Hinata escalated, with Reiner making inappropriate comments. Hinata remained composed outwardly, though Rimuru sensed her inner turmoil. Hinata countered Reiner's advances by expressing interest in Rimuru, unsettling them both. As tensions rose, Hinata questioned Prince Elric's tolerance for Reiner's behavior, but Elric brushed it off, claiming Reiner's power justified his actions. Suddenly, Elric signaled for reinforcements, revealing Gai, previously defeated by Delta, and members of the Green Fury team. Among them was a mysterious figure in a green robe, possibly connected to the Sons of the Veldi. Elric introduced Gai, now Reiner's aide-de-camp, and the leader of the Sons of the Veldi, emphasizing his powerful team assembled to defeat Rimuru. He belittled Rimuru's strength, claiming there were many like them around. Despite Elric's confidence, Raphael warned Rimuru that fighting back would damage his reputation. Rimuru realized starting a fight as a demon lord in front of influential people wasn't wise, sticking to his policy of only fighting challengers who conquered his labyrinth. He noticed someone in the chamber was angrier than him, which oddly calmed him down. Hinata addressed Prince Elric, warning him of the consequences of his actions, while Rimuru observed her composure. Despite attempts from other counselors to defy Elric's group, Rimuru recognized he wasn't rejected by the council, rather, it was a few individuals causing trouble. Hinata emphasized her role as an impartial observer, ensuring fair proceedings, and refused to tolerate recklessness, regardless of Elric's assurances of safety. Hinata tried to reason with Elric, but he seemed unreceptive. Other counselors joined in, expressing outrage at the chaos unfolding. Reiner boasted about taking control of Rimuru, further provoking Hinata. Meanwhile, the chairman and others spoke out against the disorder. The leader of the Sons of the Velti clarified their role and warned Elric about his actions jeopardizing their agreement. A member of Green Fury acknowledged Rimuru's power, instilling fear in the room, while Gai sided with Reiner, displaying animosity towards Rimuru. In the midst of the stalemate, Elric took charge and called for order, prompting Gabon's support. Elric then presented a choice to the counselors, urging them to either join his side in defeating the Demon Lord or side with Rimuru and betray humankind. He proposed a vote, confident in his majority support, which hinted at possible bribery among the counselors. Despite the unethical tactics, some counselors rose in agreement, revealing the collusion. Rimuru acknowledged the disappointing turn of events but remained calm, ready to accept the outcome. It seemed like things were unfolding as expected, according to the report. Raphael had uncovered secret ledgers detailing bribes among the counselors, providing undeniable evidence of corruption. Despite Raphael's assurance of victory without revealing the evidence, the vote proceeded, with Elric prematurely declaring success. However, only a minority of councillors stood in agreement, realizing they were outnumbered by those still seated. It became evident that the majority opposed slaying the demon lord, indicating a change of heart likely due to the removal of earlier spiritual interference. They regained their senses and realized their foolishness, siding with Rimuru in the end. The spiritual interference seemed to manipulate their desires strongly, a dangerous power similar to Masayuki's Chosen One. The possibility of someone targeting individuals with such skills raised concerns. Despite sympathizing with the affected councillors, Rimuru acknowledged the flaws in the council system, where a few individuals could sway important decisions. But then, there was the matter of those who had stood up. They needed to be held accountable for their actions. Before that, they needed to ensure that everyone understood what had transpired. "Hey, take a breath and look around," the voice said calmly to Elric. Elric hadn't yet realized the outcome of the vote, displaying his ignorance. "What are you?" a clown, came the retort, eliciting a laugh from those around. Even Hinata, typically composed, chimed in. She declared the vote fair and lawful, suggesting that the council would conduct further investigations. Elric's reaction was rather amusing. He appeared to be throwing a childish tantrum. Hinata and the others couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. Then, Gaban attempted to issue a threat by hinting at withdrawing his nation's support. However, the chairman intervened, sensing something suspicious in Gaban's statement. It seemed there was more to Gaban's threat than initially met the eye. Examining the scene closely, Rimuru discerned the intricate details of the transactions. Anti-flooding construction in the kingdom of Rybok. Food support for the drought in Karnata. They've made many other promises of support to an assortment of nations. And this is how they were meant to pay you back. But if you're going to cut off that support after they stopped taking your orders, it's all but admitting to the malignant bribery you've been engaging in, Rimuru calmly pointed out, causing Elric and Gaban to react with shock. Rimuru maintained a composed demeanor, bluffing his opponents with a light smile. Now, Elric's allies were panicking, while the chairman seemed to understand the situation. As some councillors attempted to sit down unnoticed, Soaie's sticky steel thread kept them in place. The Sons of the Velti leader acknowledged the end of their business transaction with Elric, signaling victory for Rimuru's side. However, there were still some stubborn individuals unwilling to accept defeat. The situation escalated as Reiner and Elric remained defiant, disregarding the council's authority to achieve their goals. Reiner, brandishing the Orb of Domination, threatened to subdue Rimuru while Guy's soldiers blocked the exit, preventing anyone from leaving. Despite the chairman's protests, the soldiers remained steadfast, capturing him and the other councillors. It was clear that Reiner and his allies were determined to proceed with their plan, even if it meant defying the rules of the chamber. As tensions escalated, Hinata stepped forward, determined to confront Reiner and his allies. Despite not being armed, her resolve was clear, and Reiner, oblivious to the true extent of her abilities, underestimated her. Meanwhile, Guy expressed his eagerness to face Rimuru, relying on a special sword and boasting of his strength. However, his overconfidence masked his lack of true talent, leaving him less of a threat. Seeing the situation unfold, Shuna intervened, showing her fierce determination to defend Rimuru. It was clear that their opponents had underestimated their resolve, and now they were about to face the consequences. Looking around, Rimuru noticed Benimaru frozen in place, sharing the same sentiment. Guy continued his taunts, belittling Rimuru while facing off against Shuna. Deciding to let Shuna take the lead, Rimuru remained composed, knowing Shuna was more than capable of handling the situation. As Guy drew his sword, Shuna's confidence only grew, reassured by her skill in assessing Guy's abilities. With Soei ready to intervene if needed, Rimuru cheered Shuna on as the battle commenced. Watched by the council leaders, and to everyone's surprise, the fight ended swiftly. First, it was Hinata versus Reiner. Hinata, dressed fancy for the council, moved swiftly towards Reiner. Despite her formal attire, she was ready for action. Reiner struggled to keep up with her, surprised by her strength. With a quick move, Hinata grabbed Reiner's hand and shoulder, effortlessly throwing him off his feet. As for Guy, he swung his sword at Shuna as promised, but she effortlessly broke it with her fan. Guy was stunned by this and started to protest, but Shuna urged him to fight seriously. Despite his indignation, Shuna's martial arts skills were clearly superior, leaving Guy struggling to keep up. Shuna continued to dominate the fight, using her jujitsu moves to knock him down. Then, she cast a powerful spell, trapping Guy in a magic circle. Although Guy understood the magic, he couldn't escape it. The spell unleashed a burst of holy magic, leaving Gaia half-naked and defeated but alive, sitting on the floor in tears. Shuna admitted her spell didn't work as planned, but her smile remained. Despite her claim, using disintegration to remove only Guy's armor was practically impossible without perfect spell control. Nevertheless, Shuna's rapid progress in mastering holy magic showcased her as a magical prodigy, likely aided by her parser skill. Meanwhile, Hinata effortlessly overwhelmed Reiner, leaving him cowering on his knees and wetting himself in fear. Despite the clear outcome, Gaban and Elric struggled to accept the reality of Hinata's strength, highlighting their denial of the situation. Reiner's pitiful state served as a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play, concluding what was ultimately a one-sided confrontation. With the confrontation settled, Rimuru surveyed the people standing by their seats, focusing on Elric, who seemed uneasy in the front row. The sons of the Veltiti stood nearby, clearly wanting no part in further conflict. Rimuru questioned Elric's intentions, prompting him to back down, and then turned attention to the other counselors who had stood up. Despite their attempts to explain, Rimuru ignored them, knowing they were powerless under Soei's influence. To onlookers, it might have seemed like a young girl exerting dominance over adults, a comical sight indeed. Reflecting on the failed attempt to manipulate him, Rimuru pondered how to resolve the situation, realizing Raphael's intervention had tipped the scales in his favor. However, a sudden report alerted Rimuru to a murderous intent directed at Elric, signaling that the situation was far from over. Oh! Rimuru's magic sense skill detected danger nearby, and he quickly used Mind Accelerate to assess the situation. Through his magical senses, he spotted a red-haired girl with a small black handgun, identified as a Walther P99, which had a range of 55 yards. Rimuru reasoned that their chamber, fortified with anti-magic defenses, was secure against such attacks. However, just as he pondered the impossibility of a successful shot, the girl fired, and Rimuru watched in disbelief as the bullet vanished into thin air. Raphael identified this phenomenon as spatial connection, a form of spatial motion, leaving Rimuru puzzled and concerned about the newfound threat. Spatial connection, a skill that creates portals between 2 points in space, allowed the red-haired woman to target Elric from a mile away. With pinpoint accuracy, she deployed the skill, creating a portal near Elric's head, unleashing a lethal bullet traveling at incredible speed. Rimuru, unable to intervene physically, activated the ultimate skill Belzbuth, Lord of Gluttony, which intercepted the bullet, rendering it harmless. Hinata and the Velti leader approached Elric, who was visibly shaken, while alarms sounded throughout the chamber, signaling the need for an adjournment due to the security breach. As the chamber settled, Rimuru attended to the necessary tasks, including directing Soei to capture the assassin and coordinating with the ongoing investigation. Meanwhile, discussions among security personnel and leaders revealed that the assassination attempt aimed to frame Rimuru by targeting Elric, potentially complicating Tempest's admission to the council. Rimuru reassured Elric of his safety, explaining that the failed attempt likely dissuaded further threats. Despite being a prince, Elric's credibility suffered due to his recent actions, diminishing his chances of ascending the throne despite his royal status. As the situation unfolded, Rimuru extended a hand to Elric, offering a perspective beyond kingship. Elric, now resigned to his errors, acknowledged his folly and submitted to the security team. It became increasingly apparent that Gaben orchestrated the scheme, likely manipulated by an unseen force. Rimuru considered the significance of capturing the sniper and turned his attention to Gaben, pressing him for answers. Despite Gaben's attempts to deflect blame, the mounting evidence against him left little room for denial. Witnesses, including Johann, corroborated the accusations, leaving Gaben in a precarious position, his defenses crumbling under scrutiny. As Gaben stuck to his story, Rimuru pondered the difficulty of pinning anything on him without solid evidence, recognizing the resilience of nobility like Gaben. Suddenly, the door opened, announcing the arrival of King Aegil, whose presence commanded respect from everyone in the chamber. After acknowledging the trouble caused by his son, the king offered his apology and appreciation to Rimuru, seeking to build a positive relationship. Rimuru accepted the apology and shook hands with King Aegil, feeling reassured by his sincerity and willingness to work together, effectively concluding their reconciliation. As everyone stood up, it was clear that King Aegil's bow to Rimuru wasn't meant for public record, given its unusual nature. The king then turned his attention to Gaben, who seemed surprised by the intervention. King Aegil called for magical inquisitors to assess Gaban's case, leading Gaban to plead desperately for mercy, to no avail. The royal guard swiftly took Gaban, Reiner, and Gaia away, despite their attempts to resist, demonstrating the kingdom's formidable power. Rimuru recognized this as a show of strength to impress their allies, confirming Inglesia's status as a superpower with skilled enforcers at their disposal. That was their way of showing strength, like a warning not to cross them. King Aegil had to stay sharp to prevent someone like Rimuru from taking advantage of him. If Elric had succeeded, Aegil might have used Rimuru's power to make Inglesia dominant. Dealing with cunning nobility required some level of malice. After the king's entourage left, they confiscated the Orb of Domination, but Rimuru had already disabled it discreetly. The legislative session continued with less energy, and Rimuru managed to pass all the day's important resolutions without much resistance. Tempest was recognized as a nation, officially joined the council, and was assigned military rights. Rimuru felt satisfied with his approach, relying on his companion's strength instead of resorting to violence. With the session concluded, they left the chamber, marking the end of a tumultuous day. Glenda, the skilled ex-mercenary, aimed her gun with deadly precision. Her trusty weapon felt like an extension of her own body, never needing maintenance due to her special sniper skill. This skill granted her exceptional senses, the ability to predict actions and control over space itself. With these abilities, Glenda could shoot accurately from any vantage point, bypassing obstacles and ignoring gravity. However, facing Diablo, she realized her usual tactics wouldn't work. Despite using both regular and magic-infused bullets, Diablo remained unaffected. Glenda's instincts screamed at her to flee, as her predictive skill showed only defeat. Despite her formidable abilities, Diablo proved to be an unbeatable opponent, teaching her a harsh lesson about her limitations that day. Glenda pushed her magic sense skills to their limits for the assassination attempt. She carefully chose a spot just a foot away from her target, ensuring that even the slightest movement wouldn't disrupt her plan. But to her shock, the bullet vanished before hitting the prince's head, a feat seemingly impossible without intervention. She suspected the demon lord, feeling the weight of her failure and the consequences of disappointing her bosses, Maribel and Elder Granville. Caught off guard, she encountered Sawai, a covert agent of the demon lord, who made it clear that escape was not an option. Glenda realized she had underestimated her opponent, resigning herself to the consequences of her actions. The failed assassination meant dire consequences for Glenda if captured, as she'd seen happen to many of her comrades. Determined to escape, she confronted her foe, Sawai, who anticipated her attack. Despite his warning, Glenda engaged in combat using both her gun and knife. Sawai dodged her attacks with minimal effort, but Glenda noticed his aversion to unnecessary movements. Adjusting her strategy, she continued her assault, observing Sawai's guarded response. Impressed by his skill, Glenda acknowledged him as one of her toughest opponents, excluding Diablo, whom she deemed unbeatable. Sawai's subtle movements signaled danger to Glenda, prompting her to swiftly dodge backward. Creating distance between them, Glenda recognized the wire that had advanced toward her original position. Impressed by Glenda's instincts, Sawai acknowledged her skill, prompting a brief exchange before Glenda fired a gunshot, not aimed at Sawai. Seizing the opportunity, she mixed a magic bullet with her regular shots, aiming to catch Sawai off guard. Striking him in the right shoulder, she sent him flying back, revealing his vulnerability to her tactic. Although Glenda laughed at her apparent victory, she remained vigilant, knowing the fight wasn't over. Sawai, having lost his right arm, stood again, presenting Glenda with an opportunity to finish him off with a magic bullet, cautiously steadying her aim for the final blow. Sawai reassured Glenda about her fate, mentioning Sir Rimuru's intentions to capture her for information. Angered by his words, Glenda fired 5 magic bullets towards Sawai's head and heart, utilizing her warp shots technique to ensure his demise. Convinced of her victory, Glenda relaxed momentarily, only to be shocked when Sawai reappeared behind her, seemingly unharmed. Sawai explained his replication skill, which allowed him to create multiple physical bodies, leaving Glenda stunned and realizing her grave mistake. With no time to waste, Glenda prepared for a desperate last stand against the replicated Sawai. On a balcony surrounded by blooming flowers, a girl, a boy, and an old man gathered around a table. It was Maribel, Yuki, and Johan. Maribel admitted their failure calmly, indicating it was part of the plan. Johan expressed slight sympathy for Gaban's downfall, reflecting on his devotion. Maribel speculated on Gab's motives, suggesting he might have developed affection for Inglesia's king. The conversation shifted to the magical inquisitors, with Johann noting their impudence and strength. Maribel, utilizing her avarice rule, had orchestrated Gabon's actions to provoke the Inquisitor's intervention, aiming to gather information about them. The chaos Gabon caused by targeting the demon lord Rimuru served Maribel's purpose well. Maribel had achieved her goal of uncovering the secrets of the Inquisitors, learning they were infused with monster force to become magic-born beings. To her, they were merely tools, lacking sentience in their magic-born form but regaining it when transformed back. Despite their strength, Maribel saw them as little more than useful pawns. Johann realized Maribel's true intentions, understanding that her ultimate goal was to eliminate Rimuru and gain insight into his internal affairs. Feeling a sense of fear towards Maribel's power, Johann cautiously discussed the idea of using the Inquisitors against Rimuru, but Maribel dismissed it, emphasizing the vast power gap between them. Instead, she revealed her belief that humans were inferior to monsters and expressed concern about Rimuru's potential threat in the future, striking fear even in Johann's heart. Johann urged Maribel to explain further about the danger posed by Rimuru, the demon lord's immense power, and the potential consequences if he were to negotiate with other nations. Maribel emphasized that Rimuru's strength went beyond military might. He could shape the rules and dictate terms, essentially controlling the entire region. She warned that while Tempest may initially follow the Council's rules, they could eventually impose their own values, leading to a peaceful takeover of power. Maribel ridiculed the Council for their ignorance and stressed the urgency of stopping Rimuru before it was too late, especially considering the short lifespan of humans compared to demon lords. If they didn't act now, the Razzo's goal would be in jeopardy. Maribel firmly rejected the idea of trusting a demon lord, emphasizing that their values were fundamentally different from humans. When news arrived of Glenda's capture, Johann and Maribel were both shocked, as Glenda's survival instincts were highly regarded. Glenda was a powerful asset, a product of the Razzo family's summoning program, and her defeat seemed unbelievable to Johann, who thought in typical human terms. Maribel, however, saw it as an opportunity to control Rimuru. Despite Yuki's warning about the danger of facing the demon lord Milim during an upcoming ruins expedition, Maribel remained resolute in her decision to set a trap for Rimuru, seeing it as the only solution to their problems. Yuki expressed concern, but Maribel's plan was already set in motion. In Yuki's view, winning Rimuru's trust first seemed like the sensible approach, but Maribel was adamant against it, fearing that giving Rimuru more time would only lead to more trouble. Unable to prevent Milim from joining in an upcoming expedition, Yuki suggested building trust with Rimuru first, but Maribel insisted on taking down both demon lords simultaneously. Johann protested, deeming it impossible and reckless, but Maribel remained determined, dismissing Yuki's objections and proposing to use a dangerous artifact from the dragon's nest to incite Milim's anger. Johann tried to reason with Maribel, but she was resolute in her decision, shutting down any opposition and proceeding with her plan. As Johann struggled against Maribel's determination, Yuki offered insights into their plan, realizing its potential for success. They considered Milim's likely involvement and how it could distract Rimuru, providing them with an opportunity to take over his mind. However, Yuki expressed concern about the Storm Dragon's intervention if their plan failed or if Rimuru resisted. Maribel dismissed these worries, assuring Yuki and instructing him to focus on defeating Rimuru. Trusting in Maribel's judgment, Yuki agreed to proceed with the plan. Maribel, informed by her grandfather's teachings about demon lords, saw deeper implications in their actions, understanding the political dynamics and the need to thwart Rimuru's rule. With Yuki's cooperation, they elaborated on their scheme, leaving Johann to merely hope for success as they plotted to suppress Rimuru for good. After the long conference, Rimuru and everyone else regrouped at the cafe. Rimuru was worn out, his tie loosened. He could have used spatial motion to go home, but since Soei hadn't caught the culprit yet, he decided to stay. The conference had been exhausting, especially with Prince Elric's intrusion and Gaben's scheming. Gaban, a high-level noble, was taken away by the magical inquisitors, while others involved in the conspiracy were saved by diplomatic immunity but would likely face investigation from their home nations. Rimuru, having submitted ledgers as evidence, planned to alert authorities about the criminals among the innocent counselors. Sipping his coffee, he reflected on the day's events, feeling relieved that others had taken action before him, given his position as a demon lord. Hinata and Shuna calmly recounted their interactions with the rude counselors, framing them as lessons in etiquette rather than displays of anger. Benimaru, however, admitted to nearly losing control of his temper, acknowledging Shuna's intervention. Rimuru, surprised by Benimaru's revelation, cautioned him against such behavior, knowing the consequences could be dire. Despite Benimaru's attempt to brush it off with a joke, Rimuru sensed the seriousness of the situation. Reflecting on the need to choose a representative for the next council meeting, Rimuru sipped his coffee. Their conversation was interrupted by Soei's report. "Sir Rimuru, I have captured the assassin." Rimuru was impressed by Soei's efficiency in capturing the assassin, feeling reassured by his reliable performance. The assassin remained tight-lipped about her identity but referred to Rimuru as Diablo's boss, sparking curiosity. Rimuru speculated that she meant Diablo, known for his high standards and ruthless nature. Although Rimuru hadn't received any reports from Diablo about such an encounter, he imagined Diablo wouldn't consider the assassin a significant threat. This realization emphasized Diablo's formidable reputation in Rimuru's mind. Rimuru reflected on Diablo's judgment of Raisin, considering him a wimp despite his remarkable strength, suggesting Diablo's skewed sense of strength. Rimuru pondered teaching Diablo more about strength in their world while enjoying another cup of coffee with Shuna, Hinata, and Benimaru, who opted for tea and cake. Surprisingly, even Benimaru chose cake, prompting Rimuru to join in, indulging in his favorite shortcake. Soei arrived as they savored their drinks, receiving Rimuru's request for his report. Soei, the epitome of a capable man, delivered his report, impressing Rimuru with his efficiency. Rimuru likened Soei's interrogation strategy to a gaming tactic, where opponents are manipulated into exhausting their resources while the true mastermind remains hidden. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Rimuru acknowledged Soei's adeptness in extracting information, commending him for his excellent work. Rimuru listened as Soei explained his effective interrogation strategy, recalling their previous conversation about it. He felt a twinge of guilt for inadvertently influencing Soei's approach with malicious ideas. Soei acknowledged he still had much to learn, having lost 3 replications during the encounter. Hinata then revealed that the assassin had served under her, highlighting the danger she posed. Rimuru learned about Rama, a powerful fighter defeated by Glenda, and speculated about the assassin's grenade-like weapon, possibly from Rimuru's old world. Understanding it as a manifestation of Glenda's magic, Rimuru considered its similarity to materialize weapon. He was surprised by the revelation of Glenda's ability to materialize weapon, considering it a significant threat. Speculating that Glenda might be from another world due to her use of earth weapons, Rimuru tried to play off his knowledge to Hinata. Benimaru's admiration for Rimuru's intuition gave him some reassurance. Hinata expressed interest in interrogating Glenda, seeking answers about missing comrades. Rimuru agreed, relieved that Hinata didn't press further about his knowledge. Concerned about Glenda's potential danger if released, Rimuru pondered the decision while covering their cafe bill. Despite feeling irked when Hinata's check reached him, Rimuru hesitated to speak up, worrying about being seen as cheap. As they departed for Inglesia, Rimuru mulled over the social implications of his response. Back at their headquarters, Rimuru and the others confronted Glenda, who woke up startled to find Hinata in front of her. The interrogation began casually over tea, with Hinata and Soei questioning her harshly. Hinata suggested harsh methods, but Rimuru intervened, rejecting the idea. Glenda, though initially defiant, eventually provided her name and acknowledged Rimuru's authority. Rimuru sensed she was not entirely unwilling to talk, hoping to negotiate for information, especially regarding her betrayal of Hinata. Despite Glenda's tough exterior, Rimuru suspected she valued her life and might be open to discussion on other matters. Rimuru proceeded with his questioning, starting calmly by asking Glenda about her intentions to assassinate Prince Elric. Glenda admitted to the plan but claimed she was simply following orders without knowing the full reason. Hinata then stepped in, questioning Glenda's loyalty and whether she had been ready to betray her from the start. Glenda remained tight-lipped, refusing to divulge any information about her backers or her beliefs. Despite Rimuru's attempts to negotiate, Glenda remained defiant, showing no faith in any higher power and demanding payment for her allegiance. In an instant, Hinata drew her sword, aiming for Glenda's head, but Rimuru swiftly blocked her strike with his own sword. He scolded Hinata for her aggressive action, reminding her they were interrogating, not killing. Hinata denied intending to kill, but Rimuru remained vigilant, realizing her true intentions. Thankfully, Shuna proposed using Glenda as a test subject for resurrection magic, calming the tense situation. Rimuru, though uncertain about the morality of killing and resurrecting, acknowledged the practicality of their proposal. Wanting to diffuse the tension, Rimuru intervened and instructed Raphael to continue with the interrogation. Raphael eagerly took on the challenge as Rimuru relayed its message. Rimuru calmly prodded Glenda, noting her professional demeanor and warning her not to lose her composure. Glenda, showing resilience, faced Rimuru's interrogation head-on. Rimuru then explained to Glenda about unique skills deeply rooted in people's souls, suggesting that she, too, was influenced by external forces. Glenda's reaction hinted at acknowledgement, albeit begrudgingly. Rimuru further mentioned legendary abilities like the dragon's eye possessed by Milim, known for its ability to perceive skills instantly. Rimuru reflected on the complexities of unique skills and their influence on individuals like Glenda. He noted the limitations of skills like analyze and assess and fully understanding hidden abilities and pondered his own experiences with concealing skills, particularly his Raphael skill. Rimuru recognized the importance of hastening the conversation with Glenda to gain her cooperation, realizing that Raphael's intricate explanations needed to be simplified for clarity. With the decision made, Rimuru activated hastened thought to expedite their discussion. Rimuru realized he should have used hastened thought earlier, regretting the delay. Now, he pressed Glenda about her employer's powerful unique skill, receiving a hesitant acknowledgement. Rimuru then shared insights about a man named Gai, whose desires were manipulated at the Founders Festival, linking it to a suspected skill user nearby. He mentioned Maribel Razzo as a suspect, noting Glenda's subtle reaction to the name. Rimuru explained his ability to detect hidden skills and his suspicion of Maribel's involvement in the festival's events. As Rimuru continued questioning, Glenda grew visibly nervous, her complexion paling as if affected by both heat and cold sweat. Just as she was about to speak, Hinata intervened, showing a delighted expression as she connected the dots about the Razzo family and Gren, the head of the 7 Days clergy. Rimuru and Hinata deduced that Maribel Razzo was manipulating desires under Gren's orders. Glenda realized her plans had unraveled, lamenting that Rimuru knew too much despite her silence. With their suspicions confirmed, Glenda lost her value to them, facing the consequences of her betrayal. Seeing Glenda's distress, Rimuru felt a pang of sympathy, knowing she faced dire consequences. While he had no intention of harming her and planned to hand her over to Inglesia, he realized her chances of survival were slim. Glenda explained that she was bound by spells and faced the threat of soul-crushing if she attempted to flee. Rimuru understood her predicament and recognized her lack of free will in betraying Luminous. Despite Hinata's initial anger, she softened, seeking a way to assist Glenda. With Raphael's help, Rimuru easily removed the spell binding Glenda, offering her a chance at a new beginning. Glenda expressed her worries about Maribel reading her emotions, but Rimuru reassured her that he had removed the curse. Assured by Rimuru that she was free to live her life, Glenda was taken aback but relieved. Hinata warned her of the consequences of betraying Luminous, yet hinted at forgiveness given Rimuru's decision. With the curse broken, Glenda no longer posed a significant threat, and Rimuru was inclined to forgive her transgressions. He offered her the choice to stay in the nation or leave, with the understanding that any trouble would not be tolerated. Ultimately, Glenda was allowed to go, with the assurance that Rimuru's decision was final and respected by his companions. Glenda expressed her desire for employment, willing to do any kind of work, even if it was unpleasant. Despite Benimaru and Rimuru's uncertainty, they agreed to consider her request. However, Rimuru explained that they weren't yet offering salaries since their organization was still in development. Glenda seemed unfazed by this, mentioning that she had experience in the Holy Empire of Lubelius where she wasn't paid either. This surprised Rimuru, who realized she might be more adaptable to their situation than he initially thought. Glenda explained that even the 3 battle sages in Lubelius were not paid with money but received goods instead. Hinata confirmed this, mentioning that Lubelius advocated for equality and did not provide public salaries. Rimuru realized that Lubelius had managed fine without salaries for so long, suggesting they might not need to rush into implementing them either. Despite Hinata's apparent lack of personal income, she had access to government funds due to her roles with the Crusaders and Imperial Guard, as well as rewards from monster hunting, which kept her living comfortably. But Glenda expressed her desperation for employment, acknowledging that her reputation made finding work difficult, especially after her apparent betrayal. Rimuru sympathized with her situation, understanding the challenges she faced in finding stability and safety in her life. Glenda pleaded with Rimuru to believe in her loyalty despite his doubts. Despite his skepticism, Rimuru couldn't bring himself to dislike her and saw her as a classic spy film character. He then assigned Suwei to oversee Glenda and handle any potential betrayal, suggesting the formation of a special operations team for her. Suwei accepted the task enthusiastically, proposing to recruit members locally and elsewhere. Rimuru agreed and delegated the budget negotiation to Miramile. Glenda expressed discomfort with being called a problem child, but Rimuru brushed it off, welcoming her as part of their team. Before handing Glenda over to Suwei's supervision, they decided to extract all the information she had. Instead of an interrogation, they opted for a dinner conversation. Glenda seemed more focused on the food, especially the special menu item, which everyone seemed to enjoy. Rimuru attempted to engage Glenda in conversation, but she was too absorbed in her meal. After dinner, Glenda proclaimed her newfound dedication to earning merit points, which amused Rimuru. Suwei then urged her to share the truth, prompting Glenda to finally begin disclosing what she knew. Glenda started by revealing details about the council, which was led by 5 senior figures called the 5 Elders. Granville, as mentioned earlier, was one of them. Another member was Count Gabin, who orchestrated the day's events. Prince Johann of Rostia, who had shown some support for Rimuru, was also among them. Glenda explained that Maribel liked to stir up conflicts among the elders to maintain control, making sure the mainstream faction stayed dominant. This approach ensured constant activity within the group but also led to internal struggles for survival. Rimuru realized this setup prevented stagnation and corruption but also made enemies and allies hard to distinguish, highlighting the complexities of nobility politics. The other 2 elders were Margrave Cedre and King Doran, both from Inglesia, showing Granville's preference for that nation as his political and economic center, considering it safe and strategically located. Rimuru innocently questioned why others perceived them as an enemy, claiming harmlessness. This statement surprised the group. Someone pointed out that Rimuru's actions could be interpreted as confrontational, citing Diablo's reports about Rimuru's growing influence in the world economy. Another individual admitted to sharing similar intentions. Rimuru clarified their stance, emphasizing a preference for peaceful negotiation over hastened conflict. Hinata cautioned about the consequences of upsetting the existing order. Recognizing the importance of strategic diplomacy, they agreed to focus on consolidating their economic influence and investigating their adversaries. Rimuru expressed caution about avoiding conflict on multiple fronts, particularly with Yuki and the Razos, garnering agreement from Benimaru and Suwei. As they focused on information and economic battles with the Razos, Rimuru pondered the situation, questioning if their concerns were excessive. However, Hinata raised an important point about Yuki, prompting Rimuru to explain their suspicions regarding leaked information about Shizu's reincarnation. Hinata acknowledged the potential threat posed by Laplace and the moderate jesters, displaying a chilling resolve that left Rimuru feeling uneasy. Aware of Hinata's seriousness, Rimuru resolved to tread carefully to avoid provoking her further. After the discussion, Hinata got ready to leave, but Glenda hesitated before speaking up with surprising information about Yuki, the guild's grandmaster, being under Maribel's control. Rimuru was shocked by this revelation, urging Glenda to share sooner. Glenda explained that she mainly answered to Granville, with limited interaction with Maribel. Rimuru probed for more details, learning about other associates and the Blood Shadow, the Razo family's enforcers. Shuna and Hinata pondered the implications, signaling a need to reassess the situation from the beginning. With everyone pondering in silence, even Raphael, it seemed fruitless to dwell on the problem without a clear answer. Rimuru realized the need for a practical solution, likening it to leaving difficult exam questions for later. Despite suspicions surrounding Yuki, Rimuru questioned if Maribel's influence could be driving his actions, potentially leading to unforeseen schemes. The group acknowledged the risks, especially concerning their upcoming expedition with Kigali, Yuki's assistant. Concerns mounted about potential blame shifting by Maribel and the Razos, threatening Rimuru's plans. Despite heightened security measures, Rimuru contemplated the need for a strategic maneuver, suggesting the possibility of creating a vulnerable point to lure their adversaries. Everyone fell silent, including Raphael, which was unusual. If it couldn't find an answer, worrying about it might be pointless. What they needed was a clear solution. Rimuru likened it to leaving tougher questions for later during an exam. Well, either way, Yuki's still suspicious, so let's keep an eye on him. Actually, wait a minute, Rimuru pondered the possibility of Yuki scheming under Maribel's influence, potentially disrupting their plans. So and Hinata suggested being cautious during their upcoming venture into the ruins with Yuki's assistant, Lady Kigali. Rimuru worried about Maribel and the Razos blaming the Free Guild, causing a rift between them. Despite concerns, they were already on high alert, ready to lure their adversaries in by deliberately opening a soft spot. That's settled. Rimuru rejected the idea of canceling the expedition, knowing Milim would be upset, so they decided to proceed but stay prepared for any surprises. Bringing Shion along as a guard was reassuring, and adding Gabda and Ranga to the team ensured they had enough strength. Benimaru and Shuna promised to watch over the town, while Hinata vowed to monitor any suspicious movements between countries. With Veldora as backup in the dungeon, they felt confident in their plan. After Hinata left, Rimuru wondered if her concern was a form of flirting, but dismissed the thought. With their plan in motion, they just needed to prepare for the upcoming expedition. After gathering all the officials, Rimuru shared what they learned and introduced Glenda to everyone, ensuring they accepted her presence. Glenda would be under their surveillance to earn their trust. Rimuru also introduced her to Kaijin and Kurobe, allowing them to examine her handgun and potentially restock her ammo. Rimuru even entertained the idea of mass-producing the handguns for important individuals through a licensing system. As days passed, Rimuru couldn't help but imagine having one for themselves. On the day of the Ruins expedition, Rimuru was ready to go, with their expedition outfit on point. Rimuru even had a prototype gun by their side, which had caught Kaijin's interest enough for him to create a mold during his off hours. Dold then added a seal to trigger a small explosion inside the chamber, using magical power, eliminating the need for gunpowder and ejected cartridges. The gun could hold 16 elliptical bullets, and its construction, although toy-like, packed the power of a .44 Magnum thanks to its magisteel make and inscription-driven explosive charge. Rimuru considered making it standard issue for the new troops, but hesitated, opting to see how things played out first. Nevertheless, carrying it added to Rimuru's adventurous vibe for the day. Gaba, thrilled by the gun's recoil, received one as a present, while Ranga looked on enviously, content with his fancy scarf. Shion, don't wear that for the expedition, okay? Safety comes first, Rimuru advised, noticing Shion's fondness for the clothing they had gifted her. Shion reluctantly changed into her usual battle gear, though it wasn't much better for exploration. Milim eagerly asked for Rimuru's opinion on her outfit, thrilled with the expedition gear's comfort and practicality. Rimuru, Gabta, and Milim were all dressed for the occasion, with Milim particularly excited about the numerous pockets in her shorts. With everyone in high spirits, they made their way to the Free Guild headquarters in the Inglesia capital, ready to depart for the puppet nation of Distav. At Free Guild headquarters, Kigali welcomed them at the entrance, expressing enthusiasm for the day ahead. Milim introduced herself, and Kigali reciprocated politely. As they exchanged greetings, Kigali led them inside, but Rimuru noticed something peculiar in Milim's reaction, prompting them to remain cautious. Kigali proceeded to introduce the expedition team, a group she had personally trained, comprising both skilled and brave individuals who willingly volunteered despite the potential danger. Their expedition team had heavy-duty gear, unlike Rimuru and the others who only had their new outfits. When asked about their equipment, Rimuru joked that they didn't bring any, which drew amusement from the team. However, Kigali reminded them of the importance of full body protection in dangerous areas, criticizing Milim's casual attire protected by her aura. Despite Rimuru's assurance of their experience, Kigali remained skeptical and offered help if needed. Rimuru decided against using a wagon, opting instead to open a transport gate to their destination using Dominate Space. This surprised the team, who were amazed by Rimuru's abilities, though some felt their preparations were wasted. Nonetheless, Rimuru felt confident and unconcerned about the change in plans. They arrived at the puppet nation of Distav, where they were warmly welcomed by the Dark Elves. Rimuru asked for rooms, and the elder assured them they were prepared, offering individual or group accommodations. Rimuru chose a group room for convenience. The team, still in disbelief over the quick journey and luxurious treatment, followed along, feeling like robots out of sync. The elder reassured them of their care and guided them on a tour of the castle, which was meticulously maintained by the Dark Elves. Rimuru joked with Milim about the possibility of her owning the castle after the expedition, but Milim expressed gratitude and promised support for the elves, considering them her people as well. Milim seemed to be growing smarter, likely due to Frey's efforts. Impressed, Rimuru asked her more about the castle and any issues she might have encountered. The palace was spacious enough to accommodate all the dark elves, with no surrounding town since most of them were working under Geld. The entrance to the ruins was inside the castle, divided into 3 sections with only high-ranking officials allowed in. Milim explained that the top section, once filled with treasure, was now used for residences. They entered the underground area, illuminated by perpetual magic, which fascinated the team. The elder patiently answered their questions, sparking excitement among them. Gadba felt nervous, realizing they should stay out of the team's way. They whispered to each other as they explored the first section of the ruins, noticing that it seemed quite inhabited by the Dark Elves. Gadba asked if living there meant encountering monsters from below, but the elder reassured them that only Lord Clayman could open the door to the underground. Milim suggested breaking it down if it wouldn't open, but Rimuru intervened, emphasizing the need to examine it first. As they progressed, they reached a large door with a magical seal, potentially part of an active defense mechanism. Kigali warned them of the risk of triggering it, reminding them of Clayman's recent involvement. They speculated on how Clayman might have bypassed the seal, considering his unique skill, Manipulator. Rimuru figured out that he absorbed a skill similar to Clayman's, which helped him decrypt the magic seal on the door, and Raphael analyzed the magic seal like solving a puzzle, unraveling its complexities to open the door. He realized that breaking the seal would trigger a defensive mechanism, plunging the area into darkness. With the team's support, he decoded the seal, surprising everyone with his understanding. Feeling he may have overstepped, he apologized for getting carried away, though Kigali reassured him. Realizing he might be intruding on their expertise, he decided to step back and tend to Ranga instead, though with his lively companions, it wasn't so easy to relax. Everyone was buzzing with excitement as they worked together to decipher the magic seal on the door. Rimuru explained his method step by step, and the team quickly caught on, showing their aptitude for learning. Milim managed to unseal the door with others following suit, but then the Dark Elf Elder suggested they break for dinner, realizing it was already evening. With Kigali's agreement, they decided to call it a day, eager to start the real expedition tomorrow. The next morning, Kigali opened the door, leading her fully equipped team inside with cheers following. Rimuru entered the middle section, noticing the dimmer glow of magical candlesticks illuminating the stone walls. Milim remarked on the oppressive atmosphere, and Rimuru agreed, noting the narrow corridor possibly set up like a maze. When deciding who should lead, Rimuru and Milim offered to detect traps, taking the front position. Shion and Gabe guarded the rear while Ranga stayed close to Rimuru. As they walked, Rimuru admired the murals on the walls, recognizing their artistic value, while Milim felt a sense of nostalgia. Aware of the historical significance, Rimuru was cautious not to cause any damage during their expedition. As the exploration continued, they paused for lunch and Rimuru offered to cook, but the elder had already prepared boxed lunches, much to everyone's surprise. Rimuru distributed the lunches from their stomach skill, which amazed the team, though they gladly accepted the food. Milim praised the sandwiches with heavy sauces and vegetable soup, enjoying the meal. Rimuru explained the decision not to use fire underground due to safety concerns, offering transport gates for bathroom breaks instead. Kigali agreed with Rimuru's caution, appreciating the consideration for respecting the crypt they were exploring. During the bathroom break, Rimuru approached Kigali with an idea to use elemental communication, a popular strategy in their labyrinth, to find the best path forward. Kigali, intrigued, learned about the concept from Rimuru and agreed it would be helpful. A shamaness among the group eagerly volunteered to try it out, already skilled in spirit magic. She quickly grasped the technique and guided them through the labyrinth. Rimuru also recalled a spell from a book that could put diagrams on paper, lithography, which Raphael confirmed. This spell would be handy for mapping out the labyrinth accurately. Despite still learning useful spells, Rimuru found it easier to remember seemingly trivial information, attributing it to the unique properties of slime cells enhancing memory skills. Asking if anyone knew illusory magic, a mysticist volunteered and quickly learned the spell's lithography and channeling, allowing them to create detailed maps of the ruins. Excited by the newfound capability, the team realized it would simplify future expeditions. However, Kigali reminded them to remain vigilant for traps and magical mechanisms, deciding to explore the bottom of the section before dinner. On the third day, they gathered in front of the door to the final section. Splitting into two teams, one worked on disabling the door's magic while the other continued exploring. Rimuru supervised the process with Milim, Gata, and Ranga on the exploration team. Shion, finding little to do, decided to make drinks for everyone, a heartwarming gesture considering her past hygiene concerns. As they enjoyed a break, Rimuru remained vigilant, wary of potential attacks from adversaries like Maribel. Conducting a quick assessment, Rimuru found no signs of suspicion among Kigali's team, reassuring himself of their safety. With no immediate threats, Rimuru relaxed and savored a cup of coffee. After a while, Milim returned with Ranga, excitedly showing off the loot they found. Gabda and the team members were also carrying a lot of valuable items infused with magic. Most of the loot consisted of battle gear, upgraded with powerful magisteel. Milim even found a unique item, incredibly rare and valuable. However, it raised suspicions about why such valuable items were left behind. Milim explained that they stumbled upon the loot after accidentally triggering a trap. Despite their caution, the trap was triggered the moment they entered a corridor, suggesting it was designed to repel intruders unless they matched specific biological patterns. With no way to deactivate it without prior knowledge, they had to proceed forcefully. Seems like we had no choice but to deal with it. These traps can be pretty tricky, Milim exclaimed, considering setting up similar traps in their dungeon. The idea struck a chord, suggesting this section of the ruins was meant to deter intruders from reaching the crypt. Kigali speculated that there might be more golems with unique weapons, evolved over time while on standby. Just then, the earth shook violently, causing panic among the team. Kigali reassured them it wasn't an earthquake and urged for a calm evacuation. Gabda, unfazed, asked about the cause, leading to speculation about a surface shockwave affecting the palace. However, Raphael detected a hostile force and activated the ruins' defense system, signaling the presence of activating golems and other intruders. Sudden alarms blared, accompanied by a robotic voice warning of intruders in Amrita. The urgency of the situation was clear, with danger both inside and outside the ruins. Kigali's calm demeanor vanished, replaced by concern. Speculation arose about whether the defense system activated on its own or if someone triggered it deliberately. Doubts surfaced about Kigali's involvement, but Milim, who could overhear magical conversations, detected nothing suspicious. While suspicions lingered, Raphael couldn't confirm any connection. Feeling uneasy, Rimuru wished the potential spy would reveal themselves and leave, but no such luck. Speculating that the intruders were likely from the organization targeting them, Rimuru braced themselves to protect the team. Despite their surprise, the team trusted Rimuru to keep them safe. Milim remarked on the situation, and Rimuru acknowledged that this confrontation was inevitable. As predicted by Raphael, the enemy appeared, bypassing the Dark Elves with ease. With a plan in place, they swiftly moved into position to intercept them, ready to face whatever came their way. As the second tremor shook the area, Gata expressed his concern, prompting Rimuru to investigate. Using magic sense, Rimuru observed an ominous dragon approaching from the skies, resembling Voldora but larger and more menacing. Its deteriorating appearance and overwhelming magical energy marked it as a catastrophe-level threat, possibly even stronger than a dragon lord. Speculating that it might be one of Voldora's siblings, Rimuru noted that despite its dragon-like appearance, it seemed fundamentally different from Voldora. As Milim suddenly sensed the approaching dragon, she quickly used spatial transport to disappear, indicating a serious concern. Rimuru deduced that it must be Milim's dragon acquaintance, sealed away long ago but now possibly unsealed and under someone else's control. Recognizing the immense threat posed by this chaos dragon, Rimuru expressed doubt about defeating it, considering its overpowering rage and hatred. Kigali acknowledged the gravity of the situation, marveling at the presence of such a formidable foe, while Rimuru hoped that Milim would handle the situation. With Milim occupied, Rimuru focused on addressing their own challenges amidst the chaos. Gabda and Shion prepared to confront the incoming golems, with Shion expressing confidence in her ability to handle them. Rimuru considered evacuating the team using a transport gate but realized they were out of time as the golems approached rapidly. Shion's sword got caught in the corridor's low ceiling, leaving her vulnerable to attack. Rimuru decided to take matters into his own hands, swiftly opening the door to the third section. As the team rushed inside, Rimuru and Kigali protected their rear, leading them into the crypt area where the dead lay at rest. Despite the serene surroundings, the team braced for battle as the golems pursued them. With more space to maneuver, Shion gained the upper hand, swiftly dispatching the golems and turning the tide of the fight. At this point, Rimuru didn't want anyone to get away. He knew his enemies were just as determined, perhaps underestimating Maribel before. But now, Rimuru was ready to unleash his full power. He removed all self-imposed limits and prepared quietly for the impending confrontation with the ringleader. There were a lot of golems, but Rimuru's team had the upper hand. Shion was causing chaos, Ranga was going wild, and Gada was taking down the golems one by one with his gun. The expedition team seemed relieved by how well they were handling the situation. Kigali voiced her concern about the attack, wondering who would dare to challenge a demon lord and awaken a chaos dragon. Rimuru assured them he would protect them and handle the situation. Despite the tense situation, Rimuru tried to keep the mood light, explaining the conflicts he faced were often started by others, and he was just defending himself. Kigali seemed to understand a bit better, and Rimuru focused on the battle. "So you never start any fights?" Rimuru Kigali asked. "Well, I can't say that. It's more about conflicting motivations with this enemy. Our beliefs just don't align," Rimuru explained. "We could have resolved it peacefully, but it would likely end with one side absorbing the other. If they wanted to avoid that, this conflict was inevitable." Rimuru believed that with Dworgen and Thalian's support, Tempest would have won any economic war against the Western nations. "Do you think the other side is justified then?" Kigali inquired. Rimuru pondered, considering that they could have reached a compromise if they weren't going to interact in the future. However, since they didn't want Rimuru's rule, confrontation seemed unavoidable. "Economic warfare is scarier than battles with guns and tanks because there's no clear end," Rimuru reflected. "Turning to military conflict might be lucky because it forces them to admit defeat." Rimuru believed that fighting was the only option to protect their friends. Kigali suggested seeking a better relationship through dialogue, but Rimuru was uncertain. Before Rimuru could respond, a young girl chimed in, saying it was impossible to expect people to be patient and that demands only grew if one side yielded. Once all the golems were defeated, Rimuru encountered Maribel, the enemy he had anticipated. Alongside her were three others: Guy, a man in knightly clothing, and Yuki Kagurazaka. Their presence shocked Kigali and the team. Yuki, who seemed controlled by Maribel, remained unresponsive to their questions. Kigali angrily demanded answers, but it seemed futile. The situation had taken a dangerous turn, and Rimuru could sense the tension rising. Rimuru proposed a peaceful resolution to Maribel before the conflict escalated further. However, Maribel rejected the idea, asserting her dominance and demanding Rimuru's submission. Rimuru argued against her approach, highlighting the suffering it would cause to innocent people. Maribel defended her stance, believing in the natural order of power and exploitation. Despite their differing views, Rimuru emphasized the importance of providing opportunities to everyone, rejecting the notion of casting away people's values easily. Some people are late bloomers, others have hidden talents. Maribel's approach of widening the gap between rich and poor would lead to irreversible inequality, which Rimuru couldn't accept. Rimuru believed in the potential of every individual and the importance of providing opportunities for education and growth. Despite their differing views, they realized that their arguments wouldn't align, and only through a fight could they settle their differences. It saddened Rimuru, but they understood that this was the reality of human diversity. As they prepared to clash, they represented two opposing ideas to prove its validity. At Maribel's command, Guy attacked Rimuru, fueled by his hatred. Shion prepared to face Yuki, showcasing her determination with a glowing aura. Meanwhile, Gaba merged with Ranga to become a powerful werewolf-like entity, ready to take on their opponent. Rimuru swiftly dealt with Guy, reducing him to dust with a display of power. Turning his attention to Maribel, Rimuru declared their intent to defeat her without mercy. With a focused determination, Rimuru stepped forward to confront Maribel, resolved to end the battle quickly and assist Melem. Maribel realized she was facing someone incredibly powerful, the Demon Lord Rimuru, a member of the Octagram. As Gabet and Shion observed Rimuru's transformation, Maribel focused on the seriousness of the situation. Despite Rimuru's usual gentle demeanor, Maribel understood the danger he posed. She had enhanced Guy with immense power, but Rimuru effortlessly defeated him, showcasing his superiority. Maribel, sensing the imminent threat, activated her final option, Holy Field, while commanding her Blood Shadow troops to prepare for battle. Maribel felt the weight of the situation as she faced the formidable opponents, Gabda and the Ogre, who were part of the Big Four. Despite their strength, Maribel believed she could outsmart them. However, her plans were foiled when Rimuru revealed his counter-strategy, causing her holy field barrier to dissipate. Maribel realized her miscalculation and the betrayal of Glenda, her missing ally. With her last resort gone, Maribel found herself at a significant disadvantage in the battle. Her powered-up allies struggled against Rimuru's forces, prompting Maribel to consider revealing her true capabilities to turn the tide of the fight. Maribel pushed herself to the limit, sacrificing her own soul to gain an advantage in the battle against Rimuru. With victory in sight, she launched a fierce attack, but Rimuru effortlessly countered it. Undeterred, Maribel unleashed her ultimate move, avarice, manipulating the primal desire for life itself. Confident of her impending triumph, Maribel believed Rimuru stood no chance against her overwhelming power. However, Rimuru revealed his ultimate skill, rendering Maribel's abilities ineffective. Despite her strength, Maribel realized she was powerless within the confines of Rimuru's skill, facing certain defeat. Rimuru realized Maribel had set up a holy field, a powerful barrier. Although intimidated by her mastery of it, Rimuru saw it as an opportunity. Now Gabul, Hakuro, Soka, and others had a chance to take action after days of waiting. Despite Maribel's strength, Rimuru was impressed by her abilities and wary of the danger she posed. He knew her dark waves could be fatal to anyone but himself or perhaps Diablo and Shion. Considering training for his official souls, Rimuru completed his analysis, rendering Maribel's powers ineffective against him. Hoping she would surrender, Rimuru hesitated to kill her due to her appearance, but Maribel remained determined to fight. As they clashed, Rimuru couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness as their conflicting principles led to inevitable confrontation. "Okay, I'll make this quick for you," said Rimuru, attempting to use Beelzebub's soul consume, but his attention was diverted by a loud crash. He saw Shion being knocked away by Yuki's kick, leaving her unable to recover despite her quick healing. Both Maribel and Yuki laughed maniacally, acknowledging Rimuru's strength as a monster. Yuki, now empowered by Maribel's avarice, faced Rimuru as the black waves intensified around him. Raphael reported that Yuki's power had surged due to Maribel transferring her power to him. Rimuru wondered how many cards Maribel had up her sleeve as he now had to deal with Yuki as well. Knowing Yuki was influenced by Maribel's avarice, Rimuru aimed to subdue him rather than kill him. They exchanged words before engaging in a serious fight, their powers clashing against each other. Rimuru realized Yuki's strength surpassed his expectations, considering how he had defeated Shion. Despite wanting to pursue Maribel, Rimuru focused on Yuki, knowing he could track Maribel's movements due to his understanding of her soul. So, for now, dealing with Yuki took precedence. Rimuru noticed Kigali and the expedition team tending to Shion, who was awake but unable to stand due to her injuries inflicted by Yuki. Despite Yuki's strength, Rimuru remained confident, believing that his ultimate skill would surpass Yuki's unique skill. However, when Yuki unleashed an attack that shattered Rimuru's arm, breaking through his universal barrier, Rimuru realized that Yuki possessed an anti-skill constitution, nullifying Rimuru's defenses and rendering his attacks ineffective. Rimuru considered if techniques like Melt Slash could work against Yuki's anti-skill constitution, realizing the seriousness of the situation as his ultimate skill was broken down. Despite his initial frustration, Rimuru acknowledged Yuki's developed physical abilities, understanding that complaining wouldn't change the situation, especially if Yuki was being controlled. Feeling conflicted about facing his fellow countrymen in battle, Rimuru recognized that defeating Yuki would require his full effort, opting to draw his sword and prepare for combat. Observing Yuki's unorthodox stance and dual blade technique, Rimuru realized that physical attacks could still harm Yuki, prompting him to consider the effectiveness of different techniques and whether enhancing them with aura would make a difference. Although Raphael couldn't provide a definitive answer due to insufficient information. Understanding that he needed to try a different approach, Rimuru attacked Yuki with his sword, noting Yuki's adept defense and his own improved skills from previous battles. Utilizing Predict Future Attack, Rimuru anticipated Yuki's movements, recognizing his preference for defense with his left-hand sword and offense with his right-hand knife. Despite Yuki's formidable weapons made from purified magisteel, Rimuru made a surprising discovery: anti-skill did not affect weapons, providing him with a potential advantage in the battle. Learning that Yuki's weakness lies in his susceptibility to attacks with weapons, Rimuru strategically pretends to lose balance, allowing Yuki to strike with his knife. However, Rimuru intercepts the attack, discovering a special poison on the knife that would affect his nervous system if stabbed. Rimuru counters with a new sword strike named Stormbreak, infused with storm magic from Vildora, Lord of the Storm. Although the strike leaves a large gash on Yuki's chest, his unique constitution prevents the lethal effects of the attack. Rimuru observes the influence of Maribel's desires on Yuki, hindered from delving deeper by Yuki's anti-skill. But Rimuru's plan hit a snag. Unable to penetrate Yuki's anti-skill defense with bare-handed attacks, Rimuru prepared to strike him unconscious with his sword. However, he had to be careful not to cause fatal harm. As Rimuru poised to deliver the blow, Kigali intervened, pleading for Yuki's life. Despite her plea, Rimuru remained determined to neutralize Maribel's influence over Yuki, even if it meant resorting to drastic measures. "Hey, watch out! Yuki's being controlled by Maribel." "No, it's okay. Yuki's too strong-willed to be swayed by a little girl like Maribel," Kigali reassured everyone, holding on to Yuki despite the warning. The rest of the expedition team followed her lead, expressing their unwavering trust in Yuki's strength and character. Feeling misunderstood, Rimuru wished they could see he wasn't trying to harm Yuki, but rather break Maribel's influence. As Kigali and the others approached Yuki, hoping to snap him out of it, something unexpected happened. Yuki suddenly showed signs of pain, and Raphael's report confirmed that Maribel's control over him had been cancelled. Rimuru couldn't believe it at first, but he had to accept the unexpected turn of events. With Yuki back to normal, the only enemies left were Maribel and the Chaos Dragon. "Sorry for the trouble I caused, but thanks for saving me," Rimuru Yuki expressed his gratitude, to which Rimuru awkwardly replied, trying to hide his relief that Yuki was safe. To divert attention, Rimuru called out to Gaba to finish his battle, which soon came to an end. Shion recovered thanks to Yuki's anti-skill effect wearing off, her ultra-speed regeneration kicking in. Still angry, she expressed her frustration at not being strong enough yet, but Rimuru tried to comfort her, assuring her of another chance. Gaba, feeling drained, mentioned his struggle in battle, trying to reason with Rama about Glenda being alive, but facing difficulty due to Rama's desire for revenge. Despite Raphael's attempt to undo Rama's spiritual interference, it didn't fully resolve the situation, leaving loose ends. Feeling the intense shaking caused by the Chaos Dragon's rampage, Rimuru decided to head back to assist Milim. Yuki volunteered to chase after Maribel, surprising Rimuru with his quick recovery from wounds thanks to Kigali's healing magic. Despite Rimuru's confusion about Yuki's abilities, he accepted his offer to pursue Maribel. Kigali warned of the danger Maribel posed to the ruins, suggesting she might trigger an explosion by tampering with a magical generator. Trusting Kigali's expertise, Rimuru assigned her the task of preventing the potential disaster while urging Yuki to pursue Maribel. Meanwhile, Rimuru instructed Shion and Gaba to guide the expedition team and guard the Dark Elves, while he himself rushed to aid Milim against the Chaos Dragon's onslaught. Maribel was determined to win and had released the sealed Chaos Dragon, a powerful card in her strategy. However, she had one more trick up her sleeve: a magical control reactor hidden deep within the crypt, capable of overwhelming Rimuru with its magic. Believing Yuki would buy her time, Maribel sought to trigger the reactor's destruction while Rimuru and Yuki were engaged in battle, catching them off guard. But upon reaching the central part of the crypt, she found nothing as described in her report, only empty sarcophagi and insignificant treasures, leaving her plans in disarray. Maribel found herself in disbelief as Yuki revealed the truth about the non-existent magical control reactor. Yuki, along with Kigali, explained that his defeat against Rimuru was intentional and he had never been under Maribel's influence. Feeling betrayed, Maribel demanded to know how Yuki resisted her avarice. Yuki explained that his own desires were stronger, asserting his dominance over her. Despite Maribel's desperate attempt to attack him with greed flair, her power proved ineffective against Yuki's resolve. She was left stunned and defeated, realizing that her greed was no match for Yuki's determination. Maribel's last attempt to defeat Yuki failed miserably as he easily overpowered her, draining her remaining power. Despite her frustration, Maribel couldn't resist as her strength faded away. Yuki explained that her ambition was thwarted by her young body's inability to fully control her skills. With her defeat, Maribel realized the harsh truth of the world that the powerless always lose. As Yuki bid her farewell, Maribel's soul faded away, marking the end of her tumultuous journey. Leaving his friends and Shion behind, Rimuru rushed to aid Milim in battling the colossal Chaos Dragon. Towering over them, the dragon seemed unstoppable, wreaking havoc with its immense power. Milim hesitated to harm her friend, but Rimuru reassured her, proposing a plan to target the dragon's core while preserving its soul. Despite the daunting task, Rimuru encouraged Milim to trust in her abilities and unleash her full power. With feigned confidence, Rimuru vowed to support her, relying on her immense strength to confront the dragon. Though apprehensive, Rimuru knew they had no other option but to face the challenge head-on, hoping his plan would succeed with Raphael's guidance. Even though he often avoided responsibility, Rimuru knew he had to step up now. Encouraging Milim to unleash her power, they launched a coordinated attack on the Chaos Dragon. Despite the dragon's immense strength, they persisted, searching for its weak point while battling its formidable defenses. With Raphael's guidance, Rimuru identified the dragon's heart amidst the chaos and pressed on, despite the draining effort. Just as they were about to break through, news of Yuki's victory over Maribel spurred them on. With renewed determination, they intensified their assault, and Milim unleashed her full power. Rimuru marveled at her strength and focused on his task, using precise timing to execute their plan. With Belzebuth's help, Rimuru successfully seized the Chaos Dragon's shattered heart, bringing an end to the battle. As the Chaos Dragon began to disintegrate, a new danger emerged: an impending explosion. Milim alerted Rimuru to the imminent threat, her expression filled with panic. Despite her concern, Rimuru remained calm, reassured by Raphael's guidance. With Milim's disbelief echoing in his mind, Rimuru acknowledged the gravity of the situation but remained determined to find a solution. Trusting in Raphael's assurance, Rimuru prepared to take action, knowing that failure was not an option. Remaining as composed as ever, Rimuru observed the now dissipated Chaos Dragon with a sense of businesslike determination. Commanding Belzebuth to consume the remnants of the dragon's energy, Rimuru's doubts were swiftly dispelled as the pseudo-soul effortlessly absorbed the chaotic energy. As Milim questioned if it was over, Rimuru assured her they still needed to address Gaia, the Chaos Dragon's name revealed by Milim. Drawing upon a familiar trope from TV dramas, Rimuru invoked Gaia's name, prompting a gentle response and preventing Milim from shedding tears. The glowing pseudo-soul signaled success as Rimuru wrapped Gaia's master core, completing its avatar core. Assured that time would heal Gaia's heart and revive it, Rimuru presented the avatar core to Milim, who expressed gratitude and trust. Relieved and happy to see Milim smile, Rimuru suggested heading back, knowing their friends were likely worried. Spotting their friends watching from afar, Rimuru felt reassured as they prepared to return and relax, looking forward to a bath and a cold beer, basking in the joy of their accomplishment as they rejoined their friends. Epilogue: The One Who Laughs Last. Yuki had absorbed Maribel's power without informing Kigali beforehand, causing her distress as she had to divert attention from his abilities during the fight with Rimuru. Despite Kigali's efforts to keep it a secret, Yuki didn't see any issue with revealing his skill, confident that no one could counter it. While Kigali expressed her frustrations, Yuki defended his actions, claiming that avarice, Maribel's skill, suited him well. Although he couldn't defeat Rimuru, Yuki felt justified in using Maribel's power. Kigali found his behavior reckless, but Yuki felt vindicated, attributing any negative consequences to Maribel. Right, no need to rush things now, Kigali expressed, feeling unsettled by Rimuru's cautiousness. She admitted to Yuki that while she didn't like everything about his plans, she could appreciate them now. Yuki revealed to Rimuru that Maribel activated the reactor and then took her own life, with the subsequent explosion being his way of covering up the evidence using a magical bomb. Although Yuki had prepared to stick to this story, Kigali was concerned about the destruction of the crypt, her second home. Yuki countered that they had gained something from the ordeal, including clearing his name and revealing connections between the Council and the Western Holy Church. Kigali agreed, noting the implications of holy magic use by Maribel's troops. Yuki hinted at another significant possibility, leaving Kigali intrigued and ready to hear more. I tried figuring out Maribel's plans based on her actions, but she really took some big risks, Yuki explained to Kigali, reflecting on Maribel's audacity in confronting Rimuru and manipulating powerful entities like Veldora and the Chaos Dragon. They pondered Maribel's motivations and whether she anticipated the potential consequences of her actions. Yuki suspected that Maribel might have believed she was safe or calculated that some sacrifices would be worthwhile in the long run. As they discussed, Yuki suggested that Maribel might have had confidence in a certain outcome, even if things went awry with Veldora and Milim. Eventually, Yuki arrived at a realization, hinting at a connection between the sanctuary where Laplace fought and the demon Lord Valentine, leading to the conclusion that Luminism's headquarters might also be a stronghold for demon lords. "You mean Valentine's really the god Luminous? That's crazy," Kigali exclaimed, surprised by Yuki's revelation. Yuki remained confident in his assertion, convincing Kigali of the truth. Realizing the implications, Kigali acknowledged the need to reconsider their strategy. Yuki disclosed his plan to relocate his operations to the east temporarily, prompting Kigali's amusement at his ambitious yet calculated moves. Despite her jest, Kigali expressed her support, albeit with a hint of caution against betrayal. Yuki reassured her, emphasizing his determination to conquer the world and inviting Kigali to join him in their quest. The Chaos Dragon was no more, and Milim's friend had been rescued. Upon returning to the ground, they were astonished to find the lower section of the ruins in ruins, courtesy of Maribel's desperate act. Despite the shock of her hostile actions, they resolved to restore the site, with plans to eventually transform it into a museum and tourist attraction. However, negotiations for peace with the Eastern Empire would be necessary to ensure the area's safety. For the time being, their priority remained on the restoration efforts. Negotiations with the council were progressing smoothly, but the recent dismissal of several councillors had weakened its authority. Meanwhile, the Western Holy Church was gaining influence, and Yuki, now free from Maribel's influence, was asserting himself more. With the council seeking a new leader, the spotlight turned to them, specifically to the speaker. Tempest had emerged as a dominant faction within the council, bolstered by support from Yuki's Free Guild and cooperation from Hinata. This alliance granted them significant influence in the region. Despite initial doubts, the confirmation of Yuki's independent actions relieved any concerns, allowing them to proceed with building their alliance confidently. Yes, it's true. Rimuru blamed himself for hesitating to eliminate Maribel when he had the chance. He felt his momentary hesitation was a result of his own softness towards her. He recalled similar feelings with Gaie, where he struggled with the idea of taking a life. He believed this reluctance influenced his decision-making. He wondered if Raphael remained silent because he doubted his ability to carry out such an act. Raphael affirmed, stating that it was indeed a factor in his decision. That appeared somewhat self-centered, or perhaps not. As Raphael had foreseen, Yuki took the initiative to deal with Maribel, alleviating the burden from Rimuru. Believing Raphael could easily manipulate Yuki due to his overconfidence, Rimuru felt a mixture of gratitude and frustration for causing Raphael unnecessary concern. However, Raphael clarified that he didn't want Rimuru to feel anxious. Realizing the need to confront personal challenges and make independent decisions to mature as Raphael's master, Rimuru asked Raphael to always provide complete honesty, pledging to accept it. Despite Yuki's schemes, Rimuru remained determined to thwart his ambitions with the support of friends and Raphael, trusting Raphael's guidance to navigate without error and even sensing a hint of encouragement from him.
That's it for today, guys, and thanks for watching the video. Stay tuned for next chapter. Until then, goodbye.